Hey story enthusiasts! This is another Harry bringing you another gem. In this video, we present to you what if Wednesday's nightmare visions revealed Harry's starvation and she kidnapped him at age 5. If you enjoy these stories as much as we enjoy sharing them, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Let's dive in. Chapter 1, Visions of the Boy Who Suffered. Wednesday Addams jolted awake, her black hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. She sat bolt upright in her bed, surrounded by her collection of headless dolls and medieval torture instruments. This was the third night in a row. The same dream. The same boy. Harry, she whispered, testing the name she'd heard in her dream. The details were already fading, but she remembered the essentials: a skinny boy with untidy black hair and startling green eyes. A lightning-shaped scar on his forehead. A cupboard under some stairs. And hunger. So much hunger it had awakened her own stomach, growling in sympathy. Wednesday glanced at her bedroom window. Still dark outside. The full moon cast long shadows across her floor. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet silent on the cold wooden floorboards. Her nightgown, black, of course, billowed around her as she made her way to her desk. She pulled out her dream journal, bound in leather that her mother swore was human skin. Opening to a fresh page, she began to sketch the boy's face from memory. The prominent cheekbones. The hollowed eyes. The scar. "You're real, aren't you?" she murmured to the drawing. "But why am I seeing you?" Wednesday had experienced premonitions before, it ran in the family, but nothing this persistent. Nothing that felt so urgent, so personal. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Enter if you dare," she said, not looking up from her drawing. The door creaked open to reveal her mother, Morticia, elegant even in her midnight black nightgown, her face pale in the moonlight. "Another nightmare, my dark blossom." Morticia glided into the room with supernatural grace. Wednesday nodded once. "The same boy. He's being starved, mother. Locked away like an animal." She hesitated, then added, "I think he might have powers. I saw things moving around him when he was upset." "How fascinating," Morticia said, peering over Wednesday's shoulder at the drawing. "He has your complexion. Perhaps a long-lost cousin." "No," Wednesday said firmly. "He's not family. But he's important. I can feel it." Morticia placed a cool hand on her daughter's shoulder. "The Addams women have always had the gift of sight. If this boy is appearing to you, there must be a reason." "He called himself a freak," Wednesday said, her voice tight with an unfamiliar emotion. "His relatives, they punish him for existing." "How delightful," Morticia said automatically, then caught herself when she saw Wednesday's expression. "Oh. You disapprove?" "There's nothing creative about their cruelty," Wednesday replied. "It's just ordinary. Banal. They're not worthy tormentors." Morticia smiled. "Ah, I see. Well, would you like me to prepare a sleeping potion? Something to keep the dreams at bay?" Wednesday shook her head. "No. I need to see more. I need to understand why he's in my head." She looked up at her mother with dark, determined eyes. "I think I'm supposed to help him." "Help?" Morticia raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "That's not typically your area of interest, my little storm cloud." "I know." Wednesday frowned. "It's disturbing." Morticia stroked her daughter's hair. "Well, we can discuss this further at breakfast. Perhaps your father will have some insight." She glided toward the door, then paused. "Try to get some rest, Wednesday. Even the undead need their sleep." When her mother left, Wednesday returned to her drawing, adding more details as they came back to her. The baggy clothes hanging off the boy's thin frame. The broken glasses held together with tape. The haunted look in his eyes that reminded Wednesday of some of the ghosts that occasionally passed through the Addams mansion. She flipped back through her journal, reviewing her notes from the previous 2 nights. There were patterns emerging. The boy, Harry, lived with his aunt, uncle, and cousin. They called him Freak or Boy, rarely his actual name. The cousin was encouraged to bully him. The aunt assigned impossible chores. The uncle. Wednesday's grip tightened on her pen. The uncle was the worst of them. But there was something else. Something about Harry that made him different. Special. In her dreams, she'd seen him disappear from one spot and reappear on a roof. She'd seen him regrow his hair overnight after a terrible haircut. She'd seen a teacher's wig turn blue when the teacher had been berating him. Magic, Wednesday whispered. It was the only explanation that made sense. And these ordinary, dull people were punishing him for it. Dawn was breaking by the time Wednesday put down her pen. She'd made a decision. Dream or not, vision or not, she couldn't ignore what she'd seen. She would find this boy. And then, well, she wasn't entirely sure what would happen next. But finding him was the first step. She lay back down on her bed, staring at the canopy above her. I'll find you, Harry, she promised the empty room. And those relatives of yours will pay. At breakfast, the Addams family gathered around their long dining table in the cavernous dining room. Lurch, their towering butler, served steaming bowls of what appeared to be eyeball soup. It smells divine, Mama, Pugsley said, eagerly slurping his soup. Are these real eyeballs? Only the freshest, Grandmama cackled from the head of the table. Plucked them myself last night. Wednesday ignored her soup, instead pulling out her dream journal and placing it on the table. Father, she said, addressing Gomez Addams, who was currently reading the obituary section of the newspaper with relish. I need to discuss something important. Gomez immediately folded his paper and gave his daughter his full attention. What is it, Wednesday? Found another rare poison. Discovered a new species of flesh-eating plant. I've been having visions, she said bluntly. Of a boy being abused by his relatives. Visions? Gomez's eyes lit up. Just like Great-Aunt Calpurnia. She had visions before she spontaneously combusted. I'm not planning to combust, Wednesday said. I'm planning to find this boy. She opened her journal and showed her family the drawings she'd made. His name is Harry Potter. He's around 5 years old. He lives with his aunt and uncle who keep him in a cupboard under the stairs and starve him. And I think he has magical abilities. Uncle Fester, who had been electrocuting himself with a fork and light bulb for amusement, leaned over to look. Cute kid. Need some sun though. Potter, Gomez mused, twirling his mustache. Doesn't ring a bell. Not one of the old families, I don't think. No, Wednesday agreed. But he's important. I can feel it. And he's suffering. And this concerns us because. Pugsley asked, eyeball juice dribbling down his chin. Wednesday shot him a withering look. Because I said so. What do you propose, Wednesday? Morticia asked, elegantly sipping her own soup. First, we need to confirm he's real, Wednesday said. My visions showed a place called Privet Drive. Number 4. It looked like a suburb in England. England. Gomez exclaimed. Land of fog and graveyards. Wonderful place. Thing, Wednesday said, addressing the disembodied hand that was currently serving itself some bread. Can you search for information on Harry Potter and this address? Thing gave a thumbs up and scuttled off the table toward the library. If he's real, Wednesday continued, then I want to help him. Help? Pugsley looked confused. You mean like, dissect him? No, Wednesday said firmly. I mean rescue him. A stunned silence fell over the table. Rescue? Fester repeated, sounding bewildered. As in, bring him here. A living child? Voluntarily? Yes, Wednesday said. But why, my deadly nightshade? Gomez asked. This isn't like you. Wednesday frowned. It wasn't like her, and that bothered her. But the dreams were too powerful to ignore. I don't know exactly. But these visions are coming to me for a reason. And she hesitated, then admitted, no one should suffer like that. Not unless I'm the one causing the suffering. Morticia exchanged a look with Gomez. Our Wednesday, developing empathy. How unexpected. It's not empathy, Wednesday insisted. It's justice. Gomez clapped his hands together. Well, if my little Wednesday wants to rescue a mysterious magical child, then the Addams family will make it happen. It's been too long since we've had a good kidnapping. We're not kidnapping him, Wednesday corrected, then paused. Actually, yes, I suppose we are kidnapping him. But for his own good. Those are the best kinds of kidnappings, Fester nodded sagely. We should investigate first, Morticia suggested. Confirm your visions, Wednesday. Then we can make plans. Wednesday nodded. I've been recording all the details from my dreams. The house. The people. Everything I could remember. Things scurried back into the room, clutching a newspaper clipping. It handed the paper to Wednesday. What's this? She examined the clipping, her eyes widening slightly. It's from a British newspaper 4 years ago. Boy who lived defeats dark wizard. There's a picture of a baby with a lightning scar. She turned the clipping over to show her family. Well, Gomez said, leaning forward. Seems your dream boy is real after all. And apparently famous in some circles, Morticia added. Wednesday stared at the grainy newspaper photo. The baby in the image had the same untidy black hair and the distinctive lightning-shaped scar on his forehead that she'd seen in her dreams. The article says his parents were murdered by someone called Voldemort. She pronounced the strange name carefully. And somehow, Harry survived the attack that should have killed him. They're calling him, the boy who lived. Survived a killing curse, did he? Grandmama cackled. Strong magic in that one. It says he was placed with his only living relatives after the attack, Wednesday continued reading. But doesn't specify who or where. So we know he's real, Morticia said. But finding him might be challenging. Not necessarily, Wednesday replied. In my dreams, I heard his uncle call him Potter several times. His aunt referred to her sister, Harry's mother, as Lily. And I know they live at number 4, Privet Drive. That should be enough for a good detective to work with, Gomez said enthusiastically. I know just the man. Fetid Pete, down at the morgue. Finds people for a living. Well, usually dead people, but I'm sure the principle is the same. I want to go to England, Wednesday announced. I need to see this place for myself. To confirm what I've seen is true. Gomez and Morticia exchanged another look. A family vacation to England? Gomez grinned wildly. What a marvelous idea. We can visit the Tower of London, see the instruments of torture. Pay our respects at Bedlam. I only need to confirm the boy's location, Wednesday said. Then we can make a plan to get him out. And bring him here? Pugsley asked, still looking confused by the whole concept. What will we do with him? Give him a proper home, Wednesday said simply. Where he won't be starved or locked in a cupboard for making strange things happen. Oh, we certainly encourage strange things happening here, Morticia smiled. It sounds like he'd fit right in. But won't his relatives come looking for him? Fester asked. Wednesday's expression darkened. From what I've seen, they'll be relieved he's gone. They hate him. Call him a burden. Their loss, our gain, Gomez declared. If my Wednesday wants to adopt a magical orphan, then so be it. The Addams family grows by one. I'm not adopting him, Wednesday clarified. I'm just ensuring he's not being tortured by amateurs. Of course, dear, Morticia said with a knowing smile. Now, shall we start packing for England? 3 days later, the Addams family arrived in Surrey, England. They had rented, or rather, temporarily occupied, an abandoned Victorian mansion on the outskirts of Little Whinging, not far from Privet Drive. The previous occupants had apparently fled after reporting ghostly disturbances, which delighted the Addamses to no end. Haunted already? Gomez exclaimed as they entered the dusty foyer. Feels just like home. Wednesday wasted no time. The night after their arrival, she slipped out of the mansion and made her way through the quiet suburban streets of Little Whinging. It was just past midnight, and the cookie-cutter houses of Privet Drive looked even more identical in the dark than they probably did in daylight. She counted the numbers until she found it, number 4. An unremarkable 2-story house with a perfectly manicured lawn and neatly trimmed hedges. Exactly as she'd seen in her dreams. Wednesday crept closer, staying in the shadows. She circled to the back of the house, finding a window that looked into what appeared to be a kitchen. Through it, she could make out a spotless counter, gleaming appliances, and a refrigerator covered in photographs, all featuring a chubby blonde boy who must be the cousin from her visions. No sign of Harry in any of the photos. Moving silently, she checked other windows. A living room with overstuffed furniture. A dining room with a large table. Upstairs bedrooms, one with a large double bed, another that seemed to be the cousin's room, stuffed with toys and games. And a third bedroom, apparently used for storage. But no sign of a small dark-haired boy. Wednesday frowned. Where was the cupboard from her visions? She made her way to the front of the house again and peered through a small window by the front door. And there it was, a narrow door under the stairs. The cupboard. Wednesday's eyes narrowed. So that part was real too. But was Harry inside? She needed to get into the house. Looking around, she spotted a tree close to one of the upstairs windows. With the agility that came from years of escaping from various restraints, thanks to Pugsley's practicing his torture techniques, she climbed the tree and managed to pry open the window to what appeared to be the bathroom. Once inside, Wednesday moved like a shadow. The house was quiet except for heavy snoring coming from the main bedroom. She crept down the stairs, careful to avoid the steps that might creak. At the bottom of the stairs, she paused in front of the cupboard door. There was a small vent in the door, and a bolt on the outside. Locked. Just like in her visions. Carefully, she slid the bolt open and pulled the door ajar. The small space was dark, but as her eyes adjusted, she could make out a thin mattress on the floor. And on it, curled up under a threadbare blanket, was a small figure with messy black hair. Harry Potter. The boy who lived. Sleeping in a cupboard under the stairs, just as she had seen. Wednesday felt something unfamiliar twist in her chest. A strange mixture of rage and satisfaction. Rage at the confirmation of her visions, this boy really was being treated abominably. And satisfaction that she had found him. She knelt down to get a better look at him. Even in sleep, he looked underfed and tense, as if expecting to be woken for some unpleasant task at any moment. The lightning scar was partially visible through his bangs. Wednesday had seen enough. She carefully closed the cupboard door and replaced the bolt, then made her way back upstairs and out through the bathroom window. As she walked back to the Addams' temporary residence, her mind was racing. Harry Potter was real. The abuse was real. Everything she had seen in her visions was accurate. Which meant she knew what she had to do next. When she arrived back at the mansion, she found her family waiting for her in the dilapidated drawing room. Gomez was hanging upside down from a chandelier, practicing his bad impression. Morticia was arranging dead flowers in a cracked vase. Pugsley was pulling the legs off a spider. Grandmama was brewing something foul-smelling in a cauldron she'd somehow transported from home. And Fester was teaching Thing how to play darts. Well? Morticia asked as Wednesday entered. Is he there? Yes, Wednesday replied. Everything's exactly as I saw it. The house. The cupboard. Harry. Excellent. Gomez swung down from the chandelier, landing with a flourish. And what's the verdict, my somber little rain cloud? Do we proceed with Operation Child Snatch? Operation Rescue, Wednesday corrected. And yes. We proceed tomorrow night. Why not tonight? Pugsley asked, looking disappointed. Because we need to prepare, Wednesday explained. I want to do this right. We need to make sure there's no trace left behind that could lead back to us. And we need to make arrangements for a swift departure from England. Already done. Gomez announced proudly. Our old friend Seamus the grave robber owes me a favor. He'll have transportation waiting to take us to a private airfield where the family jet will be ready. Good, Wednesday nodded. But there's something else. Once we take Harry, there will likely be complications. What sort of complications? Fester asked, pulling a dart out of his shoulder where Thing had accidentally thrown it. If Harry Potter is as important in the magical world as that newspaper clipping suggested, Wednesday said, then there will be people looking for him. Powerful people. We need to be prepared for that. Magical protections. Grandmama cackled, stirring her cauldron with renewed vigor. I'll brew up some strong wards. No wizard'll be able to track the boy once I'm done. And I'll contact cousin ITT, Morticia added. He has connections in unusual places. What about the boy himself? Gomez asked. He doesn't know us. He might be frightened. He will be, Wednesday acknowledged. But compared to his current situation, even our family will be an improvement. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about us, Fester sniffed, wiping away a tear. Tomorrow night, Wednesday repeated. We go in, we take Harry, and we leave England immediately. No witnesses, no trail. A perfect crime. Gomez clapped his hands together in delight. I haven't been this excited since we robbed that grave in Transylvania. Wednesday nodded, her expression solemn. He doesn't belong with those people. They're not fit to raise a houseplant, let alone a child with special abilities. And you think we are? Pugsley snorted. Wednesday gave him a rare, slight smile. At least with us, he'll be appreciated for his strangeness, not punished for it. Wednesday's right, Morticia said. The boy sounds like he could be an Addams, in spirit if not in blood. Then it's settled, Gomez declared. Tomorrow night, the Addams family grows by one peculiar magical child. As her family began excitedly planning the details of the rescue/kidnapping, Wednesday slipped away to her temporary bedroom. She pulled out her dream journal again and added a new entry. Harry Potter is real, she wrote. And soon, he'll be free. The following night, the Addamses put their plan into action. Morticia and Gomez created a distraction at the other end of Privet Drive, something involving what appeared to be a small controlled explosion in several of Fester's pet bats. As neighbors began to emerge from their homes to investigate the commotion, Wednesday, Pugsley, and Fester approached number 4 from the back. Remember, Wednesday whispered as they crept across the perfectly manicured lawn, we get in, we get Harry, and we get out. No detours. But I brought my collection of English spiders, Pugsley complained, patting a wriggling bag attached to his belt. I wanted to leave them as a parting gift. No traces, Wednesday insisted. We need this to be clean. They entered through the back door, which Fester unlocked with surprising skill. Spent some time as a cat burglar in the 60s, he explained with a wink when Wednesday raised an eyebrow. The house was dark and quiet, its occupants asleep upstairs. Wednesday led the way to the cupboard under the stairs. Just as the night before, she carefully slid the bolt open and pulled the door ajar. Harry Potter was asleep on his thin mattress, curled into a tight ball as if trying to preserve body heat. Up close, he looked even smaller and more fragile than in Wednesday's visions. His oversized pajamas, clearly hand-me-downs from his much larger cousin, hung off his thin frame. Wednesday knelt down and gently touched his shoulder. "Harry," she whispered. "Wake up." The boy's eyes flew open instantly, bright green and alert. He blinked in confusion at the sight of Wednesday's pale face looming over him in the darkness. To his credit, he didn't scream. Instead, he pressed himself back against the wall of the cupboard, eyes wide with fear. Who are you?" he whispered, his British accent confirming what Wednesday had heard in her visions. "I'm Wednesday Adams," she said matter-of-factly. "I've come to rescue you." Harry blinked, clearly not understanding. "Rescue me? From what?" "From this," Wednesday gestured to the cupboard. "From them." She jerked her head toward the ceiling, indicating the sleeping Dursleys upstairs. Harry's brow furrowed in confusion. "But, why?" "Because no one deserves to be locked in a cupboard and starved," Wednesday said. "Especially not someone special like you." At the word special, Harry's eyes widened even further. I'm not special," he whispered urgently. "I'm just Harry. Just a freak." "You're not a freak," Wednesday said firmly. "You're magical. And you're coming with us." Harry looked past her to where Pugsley and Fester were hovering in the hallway. His expression suggested he wasn't entirely convinced that going with these strange people would be an improvement over his current situation. I can't leave," he said. "Uncle Vernon would be furious." "And where would I go?" "Home with us," Wednesday said. "Where no one will lock you in a cupboard or call you a freak or starve you for making strange things happen." Harry's eyes widened at her knowledge of his situation. "How do you know about, we need to hurry," Fester interrupted, glancing nervously toward the front of the house. "Gomez and Morticia can only keep the neighbors distracted for so long." Wednesday nodded and turned back to Harry. "I know this is sudden. I know you're scared. But I promise you'll be safer with us than you are here." You want to adopt me?" Harry asked, a flicker of hope crossing his face before he suppressed it. "Let's just say we're removing you from an unsuitable environment," Wednesday replied. "Like when I took that frog from the science lab before Jimmy Lewis could dissect it," Pugsley added helpfully. "Except I ended up dissecting it anyway." Harry looked, if possible, even more alarmed. "Ignore him," Wednesday said. "We won't dissect you. You have my word." "That's good," Harry replied, still clearly uncertain. "We need to go now," Wednesday said, offering her hand to him. "Do you trust me?" Harry looked at her outstretched hand, then back at her face. "I don't even know you. And yet, I suspect I'm still more trustworthy than the people who put you in this cupboard," she replied. Harry seemed to consider this logic. He glanced around his tiny living space, at the cramped shelves holding his few possessions, at the spider in the corner that was his only companion. "Can I bring my things?" he asked in a small voice. "Of course," Wednesday nodded. Quickly. It took Harry less than a minute to gather his meager belongings, a few oversized hand-me-down clothes, a broken toy soldier he'd rescued from the trash, and a small blanket he'd had for as long as he could remember. "That's all?" Pugsley asked, looking disappointed. "No skulls. No poisonous pets." "Pugsley," Wednesday warned. Harry clutched his small bundle to his chest and took a hesitant step out of the cupboard. "It's now or never, Harry," Wednesday said. "Come with us, and you'll never have to sleep in that cupboard again." Harry looked up the stairs toward his aunt and uncle's bedroom, then back at Wednesday. Something in his expression shifted, a small spark of determination. "Okay," he whispered. "I'll come." Wednesday nodded and took his hand. His fingers were cold and thin, but his grip was surprisingly strong. Together, they moved silently toward the back door, with Pugsley and Fester following behind. Just as they reached the door, a floorboard creaked overhead. Harry froze, his body tensing with familiar fear. "It's Uncle Vernon," he whispered. "He sometimes checks on me during the night to make sure the cupboard is still locked." Wednesday made a split-second decision. Change of plans, she whispered to Fester. Plan B. Fester nodded and reached into his coat, pulling out a small vial of clear liquid. What's that? Harry asked nervously. Just something to help your relatives sleep a little longer, Wednesday explained. Uncle Fester will handle it. We'll go out the front. As Fester headed upstairs with surprising stealth for a man of his bulk, Wednesday led Harry and Pugsley to the front door. What if they come after me? Harry asked, glancing back toward the stairs. Uncle Vernon will be so angry. They won't find you, Wednesday assured him. Where we're taking you, they'll never think to look. Outside, they found Gomez and Morticia waiting with a strange-looking vehicle that resembled a hearse crossed with a sports car. Ah, there you are. Gomez exclaimed, then spotted Harry. And you must be the boy from Wednesday's visions. Harry Potter, welcome to freedom. Harry shrunk back slightly at Gomez's exuberance. Father, Wednesday said quietly, you're scaring him. Oh. My apologies, Gomez adjusted his volume slightly. It's just that we've been so excited to meet you. Wednesday has told us all about you. She has. Harry looked confused. It's a long story, Wednesday said. I'll explain later. Right now, we need to leave before someone notices us. Here comes Fester, Morticia observed as the bald man came jogging toward them. All taken care of, Fester reported. They'll sleep until noon. By then, we'll be long gone. Excellent. Gomez clapped his hands. Everyone in. Next stop, the airfield. Harry hesitated as Gomez held the car door open for him. I've never been in a car before, he admitted. Uncle Vernon never took me anywhere. A look passed between the adult Adamses, a mixture of shock and disturbed amusement. Never been in a car. Gomez repeated. Well, you're in for a treat, my boy. This isn't just any car, it's a modified 1933 Packard V12 hearse. I call her Bertha. Harry still looked uncertain, but he allowed Wednesday to guide him into the back seat. She sat beside him, with Pugsley on his other side. Gomez took the wheel, with Morticia in the passenger seat and Fester squeezed in the middle. What about Grandmama? Harry asked, noticing the elderly woman's absence. She went ahead to prepare the mansion for our departure, Morticia explained. And to finish her protection potions. Potions? Harry repeated, his interest clearly piqued despite his anxiety. Grandmama is quite skilled in the dark arts, Wednesday explained. Her potions and spells will help keep you hidden from anyone who might be looking for you. Why would anyone be looking for me? Harry asked. No one cares about me. Oh, I think you'll find that's not entirely true, Morticia said cryptically, exchanging a knowing look with Gomez. Before Harry could ask what she meant, Gomez started the engine with a roar that seemed unnecessarily loud for a midnight escape. The car lurched forward, and they sped away from Privet Drive at a speed that had Harry clutching the seat in terror. Don't worry, Wednesday told him, noticing his white-knuckled grip. Father's driving only kills us about half the time. Harry's eyes widened, and Wednesday realized that might not have been the most reassuring thing to say. She was still learning how to communicate with normal children. That was a joke, she clarified. You'll be fine. As they raced through the empty streets of Little Whinging, Harry gradually relaxed enough to peek out the window. I've never been out this late before, he whispered to Wednesday. It's nice. Wednesday nodded. The night is always better than the day. Where exactly are we going? Harry asked. First, to our temporary home to collect our things and Grandmama, Wednesday explained. Then to a private airfield where our family jet is waiting. A jet? Harry's eyes widened. Like an airplane? Yes, Wednesday said. It will take us back to America. That's where we live. America? Harry looked both awed and terrified. But that's that's so far away. They'll never find me there. That's the idea, Wednesday confirmed. Harry fell silent, processing this information. After a moment, he asked quietly, "Why are you doing this?" "Why me?" Wednesday considered how to answer. The truth, that she'd been having psychic visions of his abuse, might frighten him even more. But she'd never been one to shy away from the truth, no matter how strange. "I saw you in my dreams," she said finally. "I saw what they did to you. How they treated you. And I decided it needed to stop." Harry stared at her. "You dreamed about me?" "Yes. For several nights. Very detailed dreams. I saw the cupboard, your cousins bullying, your aunt making you cook breakfast when you could barely reach the stove, your uncle locking you away when strange things happened around you." Harry's face had gone even paler. That's impossible. How could you know all that?" "The Addams family has always had connections to the supernatural," Morticia explained from the front seat. "Psychic abilities run in the family." "So you're witches?" Harry asked, his voice a mixture of fear and fascination. "Among other things," Wednesday replied. Harry looked down at his hands. Sometimes I make strange things happen too. When I'm scared or angry. Uncle Vernon says it's because I'm a freak." "You're not a freak," Wednesday said firmly. "You're magical. Just like your parents were." Harry's head snapped up. "My parents? You know about my parents?" Wednesday realized she'd said too much too soon. "A little," she admitted. "We found a newspaper article about them. They were special, like you." "Aunt Petunia said they died in a car crash," Harry said. "Because my dad was drunk." A chorus of disgusted sounds came from the adult Addamses. "What a vile lie," Morticia said, her voice colder than usual. "They were murdered," Wednesday said bluntly. "By an evil wizard. You survived when no one else did. That's how you got that scar." Harry's hand went to his forehead, touching the lightning bolt mark. "Murdered by a wizard," he whispered. "But that means, magic is real." "Of course it's real," Pugsley said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "How else would Grandmama turn people into toads?" Harry looked like he might faint. "This is all, it's too much." "I know," Wednesday acknowledged. "But you'll have time to adjust. To learn the truth about who you are. No more lies, Harry. I promise you that." Harry looked at her with those bright green eyes, searching for any sign of deception. Whatever he saw in Wednesday's face seemed to satisfy him, because he nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "I believe you." The car screeched to a halt in front of the abandoned Victorian mansion the Addamses had been occupying. It looked even more haunted at night, with moonlight casting long shadows across its crumbling facade. "We're here," Gomez announced cheerfully. "Home sweet temporary home." Harry stared up at the dilapidated mansion with wide eyes. "You live here?" "Oh no," Morticia laughed softly. "Our real home is much more imposing. This is merely our vacation residence." "It looks haunted," Harry whispered. "One can only hope," Wednesday replied seriously. As they entered the mansion, Grandmama greeted them in the foyer, surrounded by bubbling cauldrons and strange artifacts. "You got him," she cackled when she spotted Harry. "Skinny little thing, isn't he? Nothing a few good meals won't fix." Harry shrank back slightly, clearly overwhelmed by Grandmama's appearance and energy. "Don't worry," Wednesday whispered to him. "Her cooking tastes better than it looks. Usually." "Everything's ready," Grandmama reported. "The protection potions are complete, the tracking charms are in place, and I've packed all my ingredients." "Excellent." Gomez clapped his hands. "Lurch has the car packed and ready to go. Seamus is meeting us at the airfield in 30 minutes. I'll just need a drop of the boy's blood for the final protection spell, Grandmama said, producing a wicked-looking knife from her sleeve. Harry backed away in alarm. Perhaps later, Morticia suggested gently, noting Harry's terror. When he's had time to adjust. Just a few drops, Grandmama insisted. Won't hurt a bit. Well, maybe a tiny bit. Grandmama, Wednesday said firmly. Not now. Harry's been through enough tonight. The old woman shrugged and put the knife away. Suit yourself. But the protection won't be as strong without it. We'll manage, Wednesday said. Let's go. As they prepared to leave, Harry tugged on Wednesday's sleeve. I just realized, he said in a small voice, I don't even know your last name or where we're going. Adams, Wednesday replied. We're the Adams family. And we're going home, to the Adams mansion. In America. And, you're sure they won't find me there? Harry asked, glancing nervously toward the door as if expecting his uncle to burst through at any moment. They won't find you, Wednesday assured him. And even if they did, they'd have to get through us first. For the first time that night, Harry smiled, a small, hesitant smile, but a smile nonetheless. Thank you, he whispered. For coming for me. Wednesday nodded, feeling that strange twist in her chest again. You're welcome, she said. Then, because she felt like more needed to be said, she added, no one will hurt you again, Harry. Not while I'm around. It was a promise. And Wednesday Adams always kept her promises, especially the ones that involved protecting what was hers. And somehow, in the space of a few strange nights filled with visions and impulses she didn't fully understand, this boy with the lightning scar had become hers to protect. The Adams family piled into their vehicles, the hearse-like car and a second, equally macabre vehicle driven by Lurch, and set off for the airfield. As they drove through the night, Harry fell asleep against Wednesday's shoulder, exhausted by the most eventful night of his young life. Wednesday watched the English countryside speed by outside the window, her mind already turning to the challenges that lay ahead. They had rescued Harry from his abusive relatives, but she knew this was just the beginning. There would be consequences. People looking for the boy who lived. Magical complications she couldn't yet foresee. But for now, Harry was safe. And that was enough. Chapter 2, Welcome to the Family. Harry Potter woke up with a start, momentarily confused by the unfamiliar sensation of a real mattress beneath him. Not the thin, lumpy one from his cupboard, but an actual bed, although this particular bed seemed to be shaped like a coffin. Memories of the previous night came flooding back. The strange pale girl appearing at his cupboard door. The bizarre family whisking him away in the night. The airplane journey where he dozed fitfully, too overwhelmed to fully sleep despite his exhaustion. And now he was here. Wherever here was. Harry sat up, reaching instinctively for his glasses on the bedside table. The room around him came into focus, and his eyes widened. It looked like something out of a horror movie, the kind Dudley would watch when Aunt Petunia wasn't looking. The walls were dark gray stone. Cobwebs hung from the corners of the ceiling. A stuffed raven perched on a bookshelf filled with volumes that had titles like Practical Vivisection and A Child's Guide to Exsanguination. But strangely, the room also contained toys, admittedly macabre ones. A miniature guillotine. A chemistry set with bottles labeled with skull and crossbones. A collection of what appeared to be shrunken heads. You're awake. Harry nearly jumped out of his skin at the voice. Wednesday Adams stood in the doorway, watching him with those intense dark eyes that seemed far too knowing for a child. Yes, Harry stammered, pulling the black velvet blanket up to his chin. Where am I exactly? The east wing of the Adams mansion, Wednesday replied. This used to be my playroom, but Mother thought you might feel more comfortable here than in the dungeons. Dungeons? Harry squeaked. They're not as bad as they sound, Wednesday said. Pugsley loves them. But Mother thought you might need time to adjust. Harry looked around the room again. This is, all for me. For now, Wednesday nodded. Eventually you can redecorate if you want. Make it more, yours. The concept of having his own room, let alone one he could personalize, was so foreign to Harry that he couldn't quite wrap his head around it. Are you hungry? Wednesday asked. Grandmama's made breakfast. As if on cue, Harry's stomach growled loudly. He realized he hadn't eaten since the meager lunch Aunt Petunia had allowed him the previous day. Yes, please, he said. Wednesday waited as Harry climbed out of bed. He was still wearing the same clothes from yesterday, Dudley's oversized hand-me-downs that hung off his thin frame. We'll need to get you new clothes, Wednesday observed. Mother's already planning a shopping trip. You don't need to, Harry began automatically, then stopped himself. The Dursleys had conditioned him never to ask for or expect anything, but these people had already shown more generosity than his relatives ever had. Thank you, he said instead. Wednesday nodded and led him out of the room and into a hallway that seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions, lined with portraits of what Harry assumed were Adam's ancestors. Most of them looked rather grim and many appeared to be in various states of torture or execution in their paintings. Your family seems interesting, Harry ventured as they walked. We are, Wednesday agreed. We've been described as many things over the centuries. Interesting, is one of the kinder terms. They descended a grand staircase and passed through several rooms, each more bizarre than the last. A conservatory filled with plants that seemed to snap at them as they walked by. A trophy room with mounted heads that Harry could have sworn blinked at him. A sitting room where various medieval instruments of torture served as casual furniture. Finally, they reached the dining room, where the rest of the Addams family was already gathered around a long table. Ah, there he is! Gomez exclaimed when he spotted Harry. Our newest resident. Sleep well, my boy. Yes, thank you, Harry said politely, though in truth he'd had strange dreams filled with flashes of green light and high, cold laughter. Sit, sit. Gomez gestured to an empty chair beside Wednesday. Grandmama has prepared her special welcome breakfast. Harry cautiously took his seat, eyeing the spread on the table with a mixture of hunger and apprehension. Most of it looked normal enough, toast, eggs, some kind of meat, but there were also dishes he didn't recognize that bubbled suspiciously or seemed to be moving slightly. Don't worry, Wednesday murmured as she sat beside him. The poisonous dishes are clearly marked. Harry's eyes widened in alarm. That was a joke, Wednesday clarified. Then, after a pause, mostly. Here, dear, try some of my special scrambled eggs, Morticia said, passing him a plate. Free range, of course. We let the chickens roam the graveyard. The eggs looked normal enough, so Harry accepted the plate with a quiet, thank you, and took a small bite. To his surprise, they were delicious, perhaps the best eggs he'd ever tasted. Good, aren't they? Pugsley said, his own mouth full. Grandmama adds a special ingredient. Don't tell him that, you'll frighten him, Morticia chided gently. Though it is snake venom, she added to Harry in a reassuring tone. Just a drop. Perfectly safe once cooked. Harry froze mid-bite. Mother, Wednesday sighed. We agreed to ease him in. Did we? Morticia looked genuinely confused. I thought we agreed to be ourselves. Pretending to be normal would be dishonest, wouldn't it? Harry swallowed his bite of egg. He still felt fine, and they tasted good, so he cautiously took another bite. That's the spirit. Gomez beamed. The boy's an Addams at heart already. I'm not really an Addams though, am I? Harry asked quietly. I mean, you've been very kind, but... Families come in many forms, Harry, Morticia said. Blood is just one way to define family. And we've got plenty of that. Fester added cheerfully, waving a knife. What Uncle Fester means, Wednesday interjected, seeing Harry's alarmed expression, is that in our family, it's who you choose to be with that matters, not just whose blood you share. Harry considered this as he continued eating. The Dursleys were his blood relatives, but they'd never treated him like family. And now these strange people who barely knew him had shown him more kindness in one day than the Dursleys had in his entire life. So, what happens now? Harry asked. Will the police come looking for me? The Adamses exchanged glances. Regular police probably won't be our main concern, Gomez said carefully. Given your unique situation. Because I'm magic, Harry said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Morticia nodded. The magical world has its own authorities. And they may very well come looking for you. Why? Harry frowned. Nobody cared how the Dursleys treated me before. That, Wednesday said darkly, is a question we'd all like answered. You see, Harry, Gomez leaned forward, twirling his mustache, from what we've pieced together, you're something of a celebrity in the magical world. The boy who lived, they call you. Me? Harry looked baffled. But I'm nobody. On the contrary, Morticia said. You're the child who survived a killing curse from one of the most powerful dark wizards in recent history. The only person ever to survive such an attack. Harry's hand went to his scar. This is from magic. Not a car crash. Precisely, Gomez nodded. That scar marks you as special, my boy. Unique. But then why was I living with the Dursleys? Harry asked, the confusion clear on his face. If I'm so important to these magical people? That, Wednesday said, is what we intend to find out. In the meantime, Morticia added, we'll need to take precautions. Grandmama has already placed protection spells around the mansion, but we should be prepared for visitors. What kind of visitors? Harry asked nervously. The magical kind, Fester grinned. Don't worry, we Adamses have been dealing with witches, wizards, and various supernatural entities for generations. We're quite adept at sending unwanted visitors away, Morticia smiled serenely. Sometimes in pieces. Harry's eyes widened. Mother, Wednesday said with a hint of exasperation. You're scaring him again. Am I? Morticia looked at Harry with genuine concern. I do apologize, dear. It's just that we're very protective of our own. It's okay, Harry said, though his voice was a bit shaky. I'm just not used to all this. He gestured vaguely at the bizarre breakfast spread, the strange mansion, the even stranger family. Of course you're not, Morticia said kindly. It will take time. But we're in no rush. Indeed. Gomez declared, standing up dramatically. Harry Potter has all the time in the world to become accustomed to his new life with the Addams family. And we shall make it a life worth living. Father, Wednesday said flatly, you're doing it again. Doing what, my morbid little rain cloud? Being theatrical at breakfast. Gomez laughed and sat back down. Can't help it. I'm excited. It's not every day we welcome a magical prodigy into our home. Harry felt his cheeks grow warm. No one had ever been excited about him before. I'm not really a prodigy, he said shyly. I don't know how to do magic on purpose. It just happens sometimes. That's normal for young wizards, Grandmama cackled from the end of the table. Accidental magic, they call it. Happens when you're emotional. Like when my hair grew back after Aunt Petunia cut it all off, Harry said, remembering. Or when I ended up on the school roof when Dudley and his friends were chasing me. Exactly. Grandmama nodded enthusiastically. Raw magical talent. Once you get a wand and some proper training, you'll be casting spells left and right. Really? Harry's eyes lit up at the thought. I'll be able to do magic whenever I want. When you're older, Wednesday said. Magical children typically start formal education at 11. How do you know so much about this? Harry asked her. Research, Wednesday replied. After my vision started, I convinced father to track down some books on the magical world. We have connections. Speaking of which, Gomez interjected, cousin ITT will be arriving this afternoon. He may have more information for us about your situation, Harry. Cousin ITT? Harry repeated. You'll see, Wednesday said cryptically. After breakfast, Wednesday offered to give Harry a proper tour of the mansion. As they wandered through the sprawling, decrepit estate, Harry's initial fear gradually gave way to fascination. Yes, the house was dark, creepy, and filled with bizarre and often dangerous objects. But it was also fascinating in a way number 4, Privet Drive could never be. Every room held surprises. Every corridor led to new discoveries. And this is the conservatory, Wednesday said as they entered a vast greenhouse filled with the strangest plants Harry had ever seen. Many of them seemed to move of their own accord, reaching toward them as they passed. Are they alive? Harry asked, jumping back as a vine tried to wrap around his ankle. Of course they're alive, Wednesday replied. Mother's very proud of her garden. She has the finest collection of carnivorous and poisonous plants in the country. They eat meat? Harry asked, eyeing a particularly large plant with dripping fangs. That one prefers small mammals, Wednesday said, noting his gaze. But don't worry, it's well fed. Harry decided not to ask what, or who, it was fed with. This is all so different from what I'm used to, he admitted as they continued their tour. At the Dursleys, everything had to be perfectly normal. Perfectly ordinary. How boring, Wednesday commented. Yeah, Harry agreed. It was. They had reached what appeared to be some kind of library or study. Books lined the walls from floor to ceiling, interspersed with mounted animal heads, strange artifacts, and what looked suspiciously like shrunken human heads. This is Father's study, Wednesday explained. He collects rare books, especially ones about torture and executions. Harry nodded, trying to look like this was perfectly normal information. You said you found books about the magical world? Yes, Wednesday moved to a shelf and pulled down several dusty volumes. These mention you, actually. Or at least, the night your parents died. She handed him a book titled, Modern Magical History. Harry took it reverently, running his fingers over the cover. It's all in here. About my parents? About what happened to them? Some of it, Wednesday nodded. Though I suspect not the whole truth. History books rarely tell the whole truth. Harry opened the book carefully, flipping through until he found mentions of Potter, James and Lily in the index. He turned to the referenced page and found himself staring at a moving photograph of a young couple holding a baby. They're moving. Harry gasped. Magical photographs do that, Wednesday explained, leaning over to look at the image. Those must be your parents. You look like your father, but you have your mother's eyes. Harry stared hungrily at the image. His father, tall with untidy black hair so like his own, glasses, and a mischievous smile. His mother, beautiful with long red hair and the same bright green eyes Harry saw in the mirror. I've never seen them before, he whispered. Aunt Petunia didn't have any pictures. She said they were freaks, just like me. They were magical, just like you, Wednesday corrected. And so was your aunt's sister, which probably explains her bitterness. Jealousy often masquerades as contempt. Harry nodded absently, still captivated by the photograph. His parents were waving at the camera, looking happy and very much alive. His father occasionally tickled baby Harry, making him giggle. Can I keep this? He asked. The book belongs to father, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind if you took the photograph, Wednesday said. She helped him carefully remove the page. We can find a frame for it later. Thank you, Harry clutched the moving photograph to his chest. For everything. Wednesday seemed uncomfortable with his gratitude. Don't thank me yet. Things might get complicated soon. When the magical authorities realize you're missing, a loud crash from somewhere in the house interrupted her. Both children froze. What was that? Harry whispered. Wednesday's expression darkened. Visitors. Stay here. But, stay. Here. Her tone brooked no argument. I'll be back. She slipped out of the study, leaving Harry alone with the books and the moving photograph of his parents. He wanted to follow her, but he also didn't want to disobey the first real instruction she'd given him. So he waited, straining to hear what was happening elsewhere in the house. Voices drifted faintly through the door. A woman's voice he didn't recognize, speaking with a British accent. Gomez's voice, unusually serious. Morticia, her tone colder than Harry had heard before. And then, silence. Harry waited for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Finally, unable to stand it any longer, he crept to the study door and opened it a crack, peering out into the hallway. It was empty. The voices had stopped. Gathering his courage, Harry slipped out of the study and moved quietly toward the main part of the house, the photograph of his parents still clutched in his hand. As he approached the grand staircase, he heard the voices again, coming from the entrance hall below. Absolutely no right to barge in here making demands, Morticia was saying, her voice like ice. I have every right, replied the unfamiliar British woman. The boy belongs in Britain, with his proper guardians. Those abusive monsters. Gomez's voice was uncharacteristically harsh. We know how they treated him, madam. Locked in a cupboard. Starved. Called a freak for showing magical ability. The situation may have been less than ideal, the woman admitted. But there are proper channels for addressing such concerns. Kidnapping is not one of them. We prefer to think of it as a rescue. Wednesday's cool voice joined the conversation. And we're not giving him back. Harry's heart swelled at her words. No one had ever stood up for him before. Miss Adams, the British woman said with strained patience, while I appreciate your concern for Mr. Potter's welfare, this is not a matter for children to decide. There are serious magical and legal considerations at play. Then consider them while leaving our home, Morticia suggested. We have nothing more to discuss until you provide proof that you have Harry's best interests at heart. I am an official representative of the Ministry of Magic, the woman said, her voice rising in frustration. I don't need to prove anything to a family of what, exactly? Gomez asked, his voice dangerously pleasant. A tense silence followed. Harry couldn't stand it anymore. These people, the Adamses, were defending him, potentially getting in trouble with some magical government because of him. He couldn't hide while they fought his battles. Taking a deep breath, he descended the staircase. All eyes turned to him as he reached the bottom. The entrance hall contained the entire Adams family, facing off against a stern-looking woman in emerald green robes and a pointed hat. She had her wand drawn, though it was pointed at the floor rather than at any of the Adamses. Mr. Potter, she said, her expression softening slightly at the sight of him. Thank goodness you're all right. I'm Professor Minerva McGonagall, from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harry moved to stand beside Wednesday, who shot him an annoyed look for disobeying her instruction to stay put. I'm fine, he said to the professor. The Adamses rescued me. Kidnapped you, according to your aunt and uncle, McGonagall corrected. They locked me in a cupboard, Harry said flatly. They called me a freak. They hardly fed me. Do they sound concerned about me, or concerned about how it looks that I'm gone? McGonagall's expression faltered. Mr. Potter, I understand your relatives may not have been ideal guardians. But there are reasons you need to return to them. What reasons? Wednesday interrupted. What could possibly justify leaving a magical child with abusive muggles who hate magic? McGonagall seemed startled by Wednesday's knowledge of magical terminology. That is a complex matter involving magical protection, she said carefully. One I'm not at liberty to fully explain to non-magical individuals. Try us, Morticia suggested, a dangerous edge to her voice. The Addams family has a long history with the supernatural. You might be surprised at what we understand. McGonagall looked around at the bizarre family and the even more bizarre mansion. Yes, I'm beginning to see that, she admitted. But the fact remains, Albus Dumbledore placed Mr. Potter with the Dursleys for his protection. There are blood wards, blood magic. Grandmama cackled from her position near the back of the family group. Why didn't you say so? That's easy enough to transfer. McGonagall looked alarmed. I beg your pardon. If the protection is based on blood ties to his mother, that's simple enough to recreate, Grandmama explained, her eyes gleaming with unsettling enthusiasm. Just need a pint or two of the boy's blood, mix it with some of ours in the proper ritual, absolutely not. McGonagall looked horrified. Grandmama, Gomez said, perhaps now isn't the time to discuss blood rituals with our guest. You people are mad, McGonagall declared. Mr. Potter, surely you can't want to stay here with these. These what? Harry asked quietly. These people who came to save me when no one else did. These people who've shown me more kindness in one day than the Dursleys did in 4 years. McGonagall's expression softened. Harry, she said gently, using his first name for the first time, I understand you've been unhappy with your relatives. And I'm truly sorry if the magical world has failed you in that regard. But there are proper ways to address this situation. Let me take you back to Britain, and I promise I will personally ensure that your living situation is reviewed. Harry hesitated, looking at Wednesday. Her face was impassive, but he thought he detected a flicker of concern in her eyes. Professor, Harry said finally, turning back to McGonagall, how did you find me? The question seemed to catch her off guard. There are tracking spells for magical children, particularly those in unusual circumstances. So you could have found me at the Dursleys too? Could have checked on me? Harry pressed. McGonagall had the grace to look ashamed. It's more complicated than that, Mr. Potter. There were protections in place, monitoring systems, that clearly didn't work, Wednesday interjected coldly. Or didn't trigger any action when they should have. Young lady, McGonagall began sternly, but Morticia cut her off. Our daughter makes an excellent point, Professor. If your magical world had proper protections in place for Harry, why was he suffering? Why did it take a series of visions sent to Wednesday for someone to actually do something about his situation? McGonagall seemed at a loss for words. I want to stay here, Harry said firmly. At least for now. Mr. Potter, I don't think you understand the seriousness. I understand that no one from the magical world checked on me for 4 years, Harry said, surprising himself with his boldness. I understand that I was miserable with the Dursleys, and I'm not miserable here. The boy has made his choice, Gomez declared. And we stand by it. McGonagall looked from Harry to the Addamses, clearly torn. Finally, she sighed. This isn't over, she warned. Albus Dumbledore will not accept this situation. Nor, I suspect, will the Ministry of Magic. Then they can take it up with our lawyers, Gomez said cheerfully. We have several excellent ones, both living and deceased. McGonagall's eyebrows shot up at this statement, but she apparently decided not to pursue it. Instead, she turned back to Harry. Mr. Potter. Harry, she said. I will respect your wishes for now. But I must insist on some conditions. I need to be allowed to check on your welfare regularly. And when the time comes for you to begin your magical education, you must return to Britain to attend Hogwarts. Harry glanced at the Addamses, who seemed to be considering this proposal. Those terms seem reasonable, Morticia agreed after a moment. With the understanding that Harry's wishes will be taken into account at every step. And we'll need magical oaths, Wednesday added. To ensure you won't simply take him the moment our backs are turned. McGonagall looked startled by a child making such a demand, but after looking around at the strange family, she nodded slowly. I can provide a magical vow that I will not remove Mr. Potter from your care without proper legal procedure or imminent danger to his person. That will do for now, Gomez nodded. Though we'll want something more binding from this Dumbledore fellow and your ministry when they inevitably show up. McGonagall raised her wand. I, Minerva McGonagall, vow on my magic that I will not remove Harry Potter from the care of the Addams family without proper legal procedure or imminent danger to his person. A thin stream of light emerged from her wand, encircling her wrist briefly before fading. Fascinating, Wednesday murmured, watching the magic with keen interest. There, McGonagall said. That should satisfy you for now. But make no mistake, this situation will need to be properly addressed through magical legal channels eventually. We welcome the challenge, Gomez grinned. Nothing the Addams family enjoys more than a good legal battle. Except perhaps a duel to the death, but those have fallen out of fashion. McGonagall looked like she was developing a headache. I will return in 1 week to check on Mr. Potter's well-being. In the meantime, I strongly advise you to prepare your case for why you should be allowed to maintain custody. We will, Morticia assured her. Thank you for your understanding, Professor. McGonagall gave a curt nod, then fixed Harry with one last look. Mr. Potter, are you certain you wish to remain here? You may speak freely. Harry nodded firmly. I'm sure. I want to stay with the Addamses. Very well, McGonagall sighed. I shall take my leave, then. Until next week. With that, she turned on her heel and, to Harry's amazement, vanished with a loud crack. She just disappeared, he gasped. Apparition, Wednesday explained. Magical teleportation. You'll learn it someday, apparently. That was brilliant. Harry exclaimed, then remembered something. Oh, I'm sorry I didn't stay in the study like you told me to. To his surprise, Wednesday's lips curved in what might almost have been a smile. In this case, your disobedience worked in our favor. She couldn't very well force you to leave when you clearly stated you wanted to stay. Indeed. Gomez clapped Harry on the shoulder. Excellent show of backbone, my boy. Standing up to authority. An Addams trait if ever there was one. So. I can really stay? Harry asked, still hardly daring to believe it. For now, Morticia confirmed. Though it seems we'll have more visitors from the magical world to contend with. Let them come, Fester grinned, producing what appeared to be a homemade grenade from his pocket. We'll be ready. Uncle Fester, Wednesday said calmly, explosives won't work against wizards who can disappear and reappear at will. Oh, Fester looked disappointed, putting the grenade away. Well, there goes Plan A. We'll need to be smarter about this, Morticia mused. Magical law, blood protection, there's much to research. And that, came a new voice from the doorway, is where I might be able to help. Everyone turned to see what appeared to be a moving pile of hair standing in the mansion's entrance. It was about 5 feet tall and covered from top to bottom in long, flowing hair, with no visible face or limbs. Despite this, it carried a small suitcase and wore tiny sunglasses perched somewhere near what might have been the top of its head. Cousin Itt. Gomez exclaimed joyfully. Right on time. Harry stared in astonishment as the hair creature, Cousin Itt, made a series of unintelligible squeaking and chirping sounds. He says he has connections in the American magical community who might be able to help us navigate this situation, Wednesday translated for Harry's benefit. And information about your parents that isn't in the history books. You understand that? Harry whispered to her. Of course, she replied. Don't you? Harry shook his head. You will, she assured him. The Addams ear adapts quickly to ITT speak. Cousin Itt approached Harry and made another series of squeaks and chirps, gesturing with what might have been a hand beneath all that hair. He says you have your mother's magical signature, Wednesday translated. Strong but controlled. And that you're going to need protection from more than just the British magical authorities. What does he mean? Harry asked, a tendril of fear working its way through his excitement. Wednesday glanced at her parents before answering. He means that the dark wizard who killed your parents, the one they call Voldemort, may not be as dead as everyone believes. And that his followers will be very interested to learn that the boy who lived has disappeared from his protected home. Harry felt the blood drain from his face. So I'm in danger. And I'm putting all of you in danger too. Danger? Gomez laughed. My dear boy, the Addams family has been courting danger since the Spanish Inquisition. We're counting on it. But, Harry, Wednesday cut him off, we knew what we were getting into when I had those visions. Well, perhaps not every detail, but we knew it would be complicated. Dangerous, even. We took you anyway. But why? Harry asked, genuinely perplexed. Why would you risk so much for me? The Addamses exchanged glances, as if they weren't entirely sure themselves. Because it was the right thing to do, Morticia said simply. And the Addams family has always had its own sense of right and wrong. A very unique sense. Fester added cheerfully. The point is, Wednesday continued, we're not giving you back. Not to the Dursleys, not to this Dumbledore person, not to the Ministry of Magic. Not unless you want to go. I don't, Harry said quickly. Not ever. Then it's settled, Gomez declared. Harry stays, and we face whatever comes together. As a family. The word family sent a warm feeling spreading through Harry's chest. He'd never had a real family before. The Dursleys had been his relatives, but they'd never been family. Not like this. Now, Grandmama cackled, about that blood ritual I was mentioning. Perhaps later, Grandmama, Morticia suggested gently. Harry's had quite enough excitement for one day. Cousin ITT made another series of unintelligible sounds. Good point, Gomez nodded. Magical defenses first, blood rituals later. ITT has some excellent suggestions for warding the property against magical intruders. As the adults and cousin ITT moved off to discuss magical protections, Wednesday stayed behind with Harry. Are you all right? She asked. This is a lot to take in. Harry nodded slowly. It's all so strange. Yesterday I was just a freak in a cupboard. Today I'm a wizard with a family who wants me and magical people coming to find me. Life changes quickly, Wednesday agreed. Especially when the supernatural is involved. Wednesday, Harry said hesitantly, do you really think that wizard, Voldemort, might come after me? Wednesday considered the question seriously. I don't know. But if he does, he'll have to go through all of us first. She paused, then added with a small, dark smile, and the Addams family has been dealing with dark wizards for generations. We're still here. Many of them aren't. Strangely enough, Harry found this comforting. Come on, Wednesday said. Let's go join the others. If they're discussing magical defenses, we should be part of it. After all, I'm the one who had the visions, and you're the one they'll be coming for. Harry nodded and followed her, still clutching the photograph of his parents. As bizarre as his new situation was, for the first time in his life, he didn't feel alone. He had a family now, an admittedly strange one, but a family nonetheless. And he wasn't a freak here. He was just Harry. Harry Potter, the wizard. The boy who lived. And now, the boy who belonged. Over the next few weeks, Harry settled into life at the Addams mansion with surprising ease. Yes, it was strange and often frightening, but no more so than life with the Dursleys had been, just frightening in completely different ways. With the Dursleys, he'd lived in constant fear of punishment for the smallest infractions. With the Addamses, he worried more about accidentally drinking one of Grandmama's potions or falling into the quicksand pit in the backyard. But unlike the Dursleys, the Addamses never punished him. In fact, they seemed delighted by his presence, especially when his accidental magic manifested. The first major incident occurred about 2 weeks after his arrival. Pugsley had been showing Harry his collection of explosive devices, many of which appeared highly unstable. "This one can blow a hole through concrete," Pugsley explained proudly, holding up what looked like a small metal pineapple. "And this one," he picked up another device, "well, I'm not entirely sure what this one does. Let's find out." Before Harry could object, Pugsley had pulled a pin and tossed the device into the air. It began emitting an ominous beeping sound as it arced toward them. "Duck!" Pugsley yelled, diving behind a couch. Harry, frozen in terror, instinctively threw his hands up. To his astonishment, and Pugsley's, the explosive device stopped in mid-air, hovering about 3 feet off the ground. "Whoa," Pugsley breathed, peering over the couch. "Are you doing that?" I think so," Harry stammered, maintaining his outstretched hands. "What do I do now?" "Father!" Pugsley bellowed at the top of his lungs. "Come quick. Harry's doing magic." Gomez appeared with astonishing speed, as if he'd materialized out of thin air. "What's this? Magic? Splendid." He took in the scene, the hovering explosive, Harry's outstretched hands, Pugsley's excited face, and clapped his hands together in delight. "Magnificent. Wandless levitation at your age. Most impressive, my boy." "Mr. Adams," Harry said through gritted teeth, "I don't know how long I can hold it." "Ah, yes, quite right," Gomez twirled his mustache thoughtfully. "Well, the sensible thing would be to direct it out the window into the swamp. The explosion might upset the alligator, but he's been rather moody lately anyway." Following Gomez's suggestion, Harry carefully guided the still beeping device toward the open window. With a final push of willpower, he sent it flying out into the swamp beyond, where it exploded with a satisfying boom and a geyser of muddy water. "Bravo!" Gomez cheered, slapping Harry on the back. "Excellent control." "That was so cool," Pugsley said, emerging fully from behind the couch. "Can you make other things float too?" Before Harry could answer, the rest of the family arrived, drawn by the explosion and shouting. "What happened?" Morticia asked, entering the room with Wednesday close behind. "Harry levitated one of Pugsley's bombs right out the window," Gomez explained proudly. "Saved them both from being blown to bits. Wasn't that considerate?" "How wonderfully disappointing," Morticia said, but she was smiling. "Though I am impressed by your magical control, Harry." "It just happened," Harry explained, still a bit shaken. "I didn't think about it. The best magic often works that way," Grandmama cackled as she shuffled into the room. "Instinct over intellect. The old ways are strongest." Wednesday studied Harry with newfound interest. Accidental magic usually manifests in moments of stress or fear. But this was different. "You controlled it." Harry shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention but also pleased. "I just didn't want us to get blown up." "A reasonable preference," Morticia agreed. "Though Pugsley has been blown up several times and always seems to reassemble himself eventually." "It's true," Pugsley nodded. "I've got scars everywhere. Want to see?" "Perhaps later," Morticia suggested as Pugsley began to lift his shirt. "I believe this calls for a celebration. Harry's first controlled magical act in our home." "Splendid idea, my dear." Gomez agreed enthusiastically. "We'll have a feast. Invite the neighbors. Release the bats." And so they did. That night, Harry experienced his first Addams family celebration, a bizarre affair involving exotic foods he couldn't identify, music played on instruments that appeared to be made from human bones, and dancing that frequently involved swords, fire, or both. To his surprise, he enjoyed himself immensely. No one at the party treated him like a freak or an outsider. If anything, they seemed to regard him as a fascinating new addition to their strange community. "The boy has power," he overheard one guest, a woman with an eye patch and green skin, telling Morticia. "Old power. You were right to claim him." We didn't claim him for his power, Morticia corrected gently. We claimed him because Wednesday saw him suffering and knew it needed to end. The green-skinned woman had given Morticia a skeptical look, but nodded. As you say. Still, power calls to power. The Adams line has always recognized its own kind. Harry wasn't entirely sure what that meant, but it gave him a warm feeling nonetheless. As the weeks passed, Harry's accidental magic manifested more frequently, and with increasing control. He found he could summon objects to him when he concentrated hard enough. Once, when Pugsley accidentally released a venomous spider near him, Harry instinctively created a bubble of force that contained the creature until Wednesday could capture it properly. "You're getting better," she observed after the spider incident. "More deliberate." Harry nodded. "It's easier here. With the Dursleys, I was always afraid when the strange things happened. Here, it feels natural." "It is natural," Wednesday said. "For you." Harry had grown particularly close to Wednesday during his time with the Adamses. Though still solemn and often macabre, she had taken on the role of his primary guide to both the Adams household and the magical world as they understood it. Each evening, they would spend time in the library, poring over the magical books Gomez had acquired. Wednesday was methodical in her approach, creating detailed notes and timelines about Harry's parents, Voldemort, and the magical war that had claimed his parents' lives. "There are inconsistencies," she noted one night, frowning at her notes. "The official story doesn't add up." "What do you mean?" Harry asked, looking up from A Beginner's Guide to Magical Theory, which he'd been struggling through. "According to these accounts, Voldemort attacked your home personally. Killed your father first, then your mother, then attempted to kill you, at which point the curse backfired and destroyed him instead." She tapped her pen against her notepad. "But why? Why target a baby at all? And why did the curse backfire only with you?" Harry shrugged. "Maybe he was just evil. And maybe I am special somehow." "Evil, certainly," Wednesday agreed. "But not stupid, from all accounts. He had a reason for targeting your family specifically. As for why the curse backfired." She hesitated. "I have a theory, but I need more information." "What theory?" Wednesday closed her notebook. "I think your mother did something. Some form of protection. Old magic, like what Grandmama practices. It would explain why you needed to stay with blood relatives, if the protection was tied to your mother's blood." Harry considered this. "You think my mother saved me? Not just, something about me?" "I think it's more likely," Wednesday nodded. "From what we've learned, she was brilliant. Talented. And she had time, moments, at least, between your father's death and her own. Time to cast one final spell to protect you." The idea that his mother had saved him, had loved him enough to perform some kind of powerful magic with her last moments, brought tears to Harry's eyes. Wednesday, uncomfortable with emotional displays, changed the subject. "Professor McGonagall will be here tomorrow for her weekly check. We should prepare." Harry nodded, wiping his eyes quickly. "Do you think she'll try to take me away again?" "No," Wednesday said confidently. "She made a magical vow. But she'll be gathering information to take back to Dumbledore. We need to be careful what we reveal." Minerva McGonagall had indeed been visiting weekly, as promised. Her initial shock at the Adams household had gradually given way to a reluctant respect for the family's obvious care for Harry, despite their eccentricities. During her last visit, she had even brought magical photographs of Harry's parents during their school days, which now had a place of honor in Harry's room. "Your father was quite the troublemaker at school," she had told him with a hint of fondness in her voice. "Brilliant, but rarely applied himself except in Transfiguration and Quidditch. Your mother was one of our brightest students. Talented in charms and potions particularly." Harry had treasured this information, adding it to the growing collection of knowledge about his parents. But McGonagall wasn't the only visitor from the magical world. Twice now, officials from the American magical government, the Magical Congress of the United States, or MACUSA, had come to investigate reports of an underage British wizard living with a non-magical family. These visits had been tenser, with the officials clearly uncomfortable with both the Addams family's strangeness and the international implications of Harry's situation. The British ministry has filed a formal request for the boy's return, the last MACUSA representative had informed them stiffly. They claim guardianship was legally established with his maternal relatives and that his removal was unlawful. And what does MACUSA say to that? Gomez had asked, uncharacteristically serious. For now, we're maintaining neutrality, the official had replied. The boy appears to be in no immediate danger, and there are jurisdictional complexities. But this situation cannot continue indefinitely. A formal hearing will likely be necessary. Through all of this, Harry had remained firm in his desire to stay with the Addamses. His health had improved dramatically, regular meals had filled out his skinny frame, and Grandmama's strange but effective remedies had corrected years of poor nutrition and neglect. More importantly, he was happy. For the first time in his life, he was part of a family that accepted and even celebrated his differences. Yes, they were bizarre and often frightening, but they were also fiercely protective and, in their own strange way, loving. Today, however, Harry was nervous. Professor McGonagall's usual visit had been delayed by a week, and she had sent word, via a particularly disgruntled owl, that she would be bringing someone with her. "It'll be Dumbledore," Wednesday predicted as they waited in the drawing room. "The headmaster. The one who placed you with the Dursleys." Harry's stomach churned at the thought. What if he tries to make me go back? He can try, Wednesday said, her voice cold. It won't end well for him. The doorbell rang, a gloomy, echoing sound that reverberated throughout the mansion. Lurch shuffled off to answer it with his characteristic groan. Moments later, Professor McGonagall entered the drawing room, accompanied by a tall, thin man with silver hair and beard so long they could be tucked into his belt. He wore magnificent robes of deep purple adorned with silver stars, and half-moon spectacles perched on his crooked nose. His blue eyes twinkled as they fell on Harry. "Harry, my boy," he said warmly. "At last we meet again. I am Albus Dumbledore." Harry instinctively moved closer to Wednesday, who had risen from her seat. "Headmaster Dumbledore," Morticia greeted him coolly. "We've been expecting you." "Mrs. Addams," Dumbledore bowed slightly. "Thank you for receiving us. I understand my colleague has been checking on young Harry's welfare regularly." "She has," Gomez confirmed, twirling his mustache. "Most diligent. Excellent reports all around, right, Professor?" McGonagall nodded stiffly. "Mr. Potter appears to be in good health and, adjusting well to his new environment." "Wonderful, wonderful," Dumbledore beamed. "May I sit? I believe we have much to discuss." Morticia gestured to an empty chair. "Please." As Dumbledore took his seat, Harry studied the man who had placed him with the Dursleys. He seemed kind, grandfatherly even, but Harry couldn't help feeling a flicker of resentment. This man had left him in that cupboard for 4 years. "Harry," Dumbledore said gently, "you're looking well. Much better than when I last saw you, I must say." "When was that?" Harry asked, unable to keep a hint of accusation from his voice. "Ah," Dumbledore's smile faltered slightly. "Shortly after your parents' tragic deaths, I'm afraid. When I left you with your aunt and uncle." "Left him on a doorstep in November," Wednesday said flatly. "With only a letter of explanation." Dumbledore's eyes widened slightly. "You seem remarkably well informed, Miss Addams." "We make it our business to be informed about those we care for," Morticia said. "Indeed," Dumbledore nodded. "A commendable trait. And it's clear you have been taking excellent care of Harry since his arrival in your home." "Since his rescue," Wednesday corrected. "As you wish," Dumbledore conceded. "The purpose of my visit today is not to cast aspersions on your care of Harry, but to discuss the rather complex magical situation his presence here creates." The blood wards, Gomez said knowledgeably. Tied to his mother's sacrifice, anchored through his aunt, her blood sister. Again, Dumbledore looked surprised at their knowledge. Precisely, Mr. Adams. The protection Lily Potter gave her son through her sacrifice remains active only while Harry can call home a place where his mother's blood dwells. So you admit the Dursleys' treatment of Harry was irrelevant to you, Wednesday said coldly. As long as the blood protection remained intact. Dumbledore sighed heavily. I would not put it so harshly. I had hoped, perhaps naively, that Petunia Dursley would overcome her jealousy of her sister and care properly for her nephew. Monitoring charms were in place, but... He hesitated. They failed, Harry said. Or you ignored them. They indicated neglect, Dumbledore admitted. But not abuse of a level that outweighed the protection from Voldemort's followers. I made a calculation, Harry. One I believed was in your best interest, even if it meant difficulties in your home life. Difficulties? Gomez repeated incredulously. The boy was locked in a cupboard. Starved. Treated like a house elf. And now he has no protection against those who would harm him, Dumbledore countered. The blood wards have fallen. Harry is vulnerable. He has us, Wednesday said simply. Dumbledore regarded her thoughtfully. Yes, he does. And that brings me to my proposal. Everyone tensed. I am not here to force Harry to return to the Dursleys, Dumbledore said, to Harry's immense relief. It's clear that arrangement has failed, and I accept my responsibility in that failure. How magnanimous, Morticia murmured. However, Dumbledore continued, Harry's safety remains paramount. Without the blood wards, he needs other forms of protection. Magical protection. We've implemented several, Gomez informed him. Cousin ITT has connections with American warders. The mansion is now under a modified Fidelius charm, with Wednesday as the secret keeper. Anti-apparition wards. Curse detection. Blood recognition barriers, only those with Adam's blood or explicitly granted permission can enter. Once again, Dumbledore looked taken aback by their magical knowledge and preparations. Impressive, he admitted. But there's the matter of Harry's magical education. He must attend Hogwarts when he turns 11. It's where his parents learned magic, and where he is registered to attend. We're aware, Wednesday said. And we'll consider it when the time comes. Consider it? McGonagall spoke up, sounding affronted. Mr. Potter must receive proper magical education. And he will, Morticia assured her. Whether at Hogwarts or elsewhere remains to be seen. Ilvermorny has expressed interest, Gomez added, referring to the American Wizarding School. Particularly given Harry's unique situation. Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. I see you've been in contact with the American magical community. I must say, I'm impressed by how thoroughly you've integrated yourselves into Harry's magical future despite being, forgive me, non-magical yourselves. The Addams family has always straddled the boundary between worlds, Morticia said with a slight smile. Magic, non-magic. Life, death. We find such distinctions rather artificial. So I'm beginning to understand, Dumbledore nodded. Very well. I propose a compromise. Harry remains with you, with certain magical protections that I can help provide. In return, when he turns 11, he attends Hogwarts, with accommodations for his unique guardianship situation. What sort of accommodations? Wednesday asked suspiciously. Extended holidays with his family, Dumbledore suggested. Perhaps a family member could relocate to Hogsmeade, the village near the school, during term time. And I'm certain we could arrange for communication methods more effective than Owl Post. Harry looked at the Addamses, his heart racing. This was more than he'd dared hope for, to stay with his new family and still attend his parents' school. We would need magical vows, Gomez said seriously. Like the one Professor McGonagall made. Guaranteeing Harry's right to remain with us, barring true unfitness on our part. I believe that can be arranged, Dumbledore nodded. Though the British Ministry of Magic may require some persuasion. Leave that to our lawyers, Gomez grinned. They love a good international custody battle. And what about Voldemort? Wednesday asked bluntly. You said Harry needs protection from him, which implies he's not truly gone. A heavy silence fell over the room. Dumbledore regarded Wednesday with new respect. You are a remarkably perceptive young woman, Miss Adams, he said finally. You're right, of course. I believe Lord Voldemort is not truly dead, merely defeated and greatly weakened. And I believe he will eventually attempt to return and, when he does, seek out Harry. Why? Harry asked. Why does he care about me so much? Dumbledore hesitated. That is a conversation for when you're older, Harry. No, Harry said firmly, surprising himself with his boldness. No more secrets. No more, for your own good. That's how I ended up in a cupboard for 4 years. Dumbledore looked pained. You're right to be angry, Harry. But some knowledge is dangerous, not just to have, but to speak aloud. There are magics at work that could be triggered by certain revelations. Then write it down, Wednesday suggested. Or use a pensieve. The Addams family has one in the attic. Again, Dumbledore looked startled by their magical knowledge. Perhaps a partial explanation, then, he conceded. Before attacking your family, Voldemort had come to believe that you specifically posed a threat to him. A prophecy had been made suggesting a child born as July ended would have the power to vanquish him. A prophecy? Harry repeated skeptically. Yes, Dumbledore nodded. Whether you believe in such things or not, Voldemort did, and does. He acted to eliminate the threat, and in doing so, fulfilled the first part of the prophecy himself. Self-fulfilling prophecies, Wednesday nodded. The most dangerous kind. Indeed, Dumbledore agreed. And now, having marked you as his equal, he gestured to Harry's scar, Voldemort will never rest until he completes what he set out to do. Unless we stop him first, Wednesday said matter-of-factly. An admirable sentiment, Miss Adams, but Lord Voldemort is one of the most powerful dark wizards in history, McGonagall said. And the Addams family has been battling dark forces since before America was a country, Gomez replied. We're rather good at it. Dumbledore studied the strange family thoughtfully. I'm beginning to believe you might be, he admitted. Very well. Harry stays with you, with additional protections that I will help establish. When he turns 11, we revisit the Hogwarts question, with Harry's input. And the Ministry of Magic? Morticia asked. Will they accept your decision? They will, Dumbledore said confidently. I have some influence there. And I suspect they'll be reluctant to create an international incident with MACUSA over this matter. Then we have an agreement, Gomez declared, standing to offer his hand to Dumbledore. Harry stays, additional protections are added, and all parties work together for his safety and education. Dumbledore rose and shook Gomez's hand. Indeed. Though I suspect this is just the beginning of what promises to be a most unusual guardianship arrangement. We wouldn't have it any other way, Morticia smiled. The Addams family thrives on the unusual. As the adults finalize details, Harry turned to Wednesday. Thank you, he said quietly. For everything. Wednesday looked uncomfortable with his gratitude. I just did what the visions told me to do. No, Harry shook his head. You did more than that. You could have ignored them. You could have left me there. But you didn't. Wednesday was silent for a moment. Then, in a rare display of emotion, she reached out and briefly squeezed his hand. No one deserves to be locked away and punished for being different, she said. Not even someone as relentlessly optimistic as you're becoming. Harry grinned, recognizing the teasing for what it was. I can't help it. For the first time, I have something to be optimistic about. Wednesday rolled her eyes, but Harry thought he detected the faintest hint of a smile on her usually somber face. Later that evening, after Dumbledore and McGonagall had departed, with promises to return soon with additional protective enchantments, the Addams family gathered in the conservatory. Morticia was pruning her deadly nightshade, Gomez was fencing with a mechanical dummy, Pugsley was attempting to teach Thing to juggle grenades, and Grandmama was brewing something foul-smelling in a cauldron. Harry sat on a stone bench beside Wednesday, watching the family go about their bizarre activities with a sense of contentment he'd never experienced before. "What will happen now?" he asked her. Wednesday considered the question. "More visitors, probably. More negotiations. Magical and legal complexities." She shrugged. "But you'll stay here. You're one of us now." "An Addams?" Harry asked with a small smile. "In spirit, if not in name," Wednesday confirmed. "Though Grandmama is still keen on that blood adoption ritual." "Maybe someday," Harry said, surprising himself. A month ago, the thought of any kind of ritual involving his blood would have terrified him. Now, it seemed almost normal. "Harry." "Wednesday." Gomez called from across the conservatory. "Come join us. Fester's about to demonstrate how to properly milk venom from a basilisk fawn." "Is that safe?" Harry asked as they rose to join the family. Wednesday gave him a look. "Of course not. That's what makes it interesting." Harry laughed and followed her toward the family gathering, his heart fuller than he'd ever thought possible. From unwanted freak to cherished family member in the space of a month, it was like magic. And for once, the magic in Harry's life was bringing him joy instead of punishment. "Come on, Harry," Wednesday urged, a rare excitement in her voice. "You don't want to miss this. Last time Uncle Fester did this, he was paralyzed for a week." "Sounds great," Harry grinned, meaning it completely. He was home. Chapter 3, Darkness and Light. 6 months flew by in the Addams mansion like a bat out of hell, literally, in some cases, as Uncle Fester's pet bats had taken to swooping through the corridors at all hours. Harry Potter barely recognized himself anymore when he looked in the mirror, a talking one that Cousin Itt had gifted him, which offered sarcastic commentary on his perpetually messy hair. Gone was the frightened, malnourished boy from the cupboard under the stairs. In his place stood a healthier, happier kid with a glint of mischief in his green eyes that would have made James Potter proud. He'd filled out thanks to Grandmama's hearty, if occasionally squirming, meals. His scar remained, but it was no longer the only interesting thing about him. "Focus, Harry," Wednesday instructed as they sat cross-legged in the mansion's attic, surrounded by candles that burned with blue flames. "Feel the energy flowing through your fingertips." Harry closed his eyes, concentrating on the small feather lying on the floor between them. Over the past months, Wednesday had taken it upon herself to help him gain control over his accidental magic, developing exercises that seemed to blend meditation, wandless magic theory from the books they'd acquired, and some distinctly Addams-like practices that Harry suspected wouldn't be found in any Hogwarts curriculum. "It's like a current," he murmured, feeling the now familiar tingle of magic pulsing beneath his skin. "Like electricity, but alive." "Directed," Wednesday said, her voice steady and calm. "Not with force. With intent." Harry visualized the magic flowing from his core, down his arms, through his fingertips, reaching toward the feather. Slowly, delicately, the small white plume began to rise from the floor, hovering about 6 inches in the air. "Higher," Wednesday encouraged. "And make it dance." Harry's brow furrowed in concentration. The feather rose another foot, then began to twirl and loop in the air, tracing figure eights. "Good," Wednesday nodded, the faintest hint of approval in her voice. "Now, without losing control of the feather, light one of the unlit candles." Harry felt sweat beading on his forehead. This was new, they'd practiced levitation and simple pyrokinesis separately, but never simultaneously. He tried to divide his attention, maintaining the current of magic animating the feather while directing a separate strand toward the candle wick. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, just as the feather began to wobble precariously, the candle sputtered to life with a blue-tinged flame. "I did it!" Harry exclaimed, losing concentration and causing the feather to drift lazily back to the floor. "You did," Wednesday acknowledged. "Your control is improving." She didn't smile. Wednesday rarely did, but Harry had learned to read the subtle signs of approval in her dark eyes. "Couldn't have done it without you," Harry said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Professor McGonagall said most wizard kids can't do any controlled magic without wands." "Most wizard kids don't have an Adams teaching them," Wednesday replied matter-of-factly. "Magic is about will and intent more than words and wands. The magical community has become overly dependent on tools." Harry nodded. This was a familiar theme in their training sessions. While Wednesday couldn't perform magic herself, her family's centuries of interaction with supernatural forces had given her insights that often contradicted what Harry read in standard magical texts. "Do you think I'll be ahead of the other kids when I go to Hogwarts?" Harry asked. "In some ways," Wednesday said. "Behind in others. Your wandless abilities will be unusual, but you'll need to learn the conventional approach too." Harry crossed his legs, absently making the feather twirl again without even looking at it. "I still can't believe I'm going in September. And that you're coming with me." This had been the most surprising development in the ongoing negotiations between the Adamses and the magical authorities. After months of diplomatic back and forth between the British Ministry, MACUSA, and Dumbledore, they'd reached an unprecedented arrangement. Harry would attend Hogwarts as planned, but Wednesday would accompany him as a cultural exchange student, the first non-magical child ever admitted to the wizarding school. "Mother and father were very persuasive," Wednesday said, understating the month-long legal and magical battle that had resulted in this compromise. "And Dumbledore turned out to be more open-minded than expected." Harry suspected the headmaster had realized it was either this arrangement or lose Harry to Ilvermorny, the American magical school that had indeed extended an enthusiastic invitation once they learned the boy who lived was residing in the United States. "Harry!" "Wednesday!" Pugsley's voice bellowed from somewhere in the mansion. "Grandmama says come down. Visitors." The two exchanged glances. Visitors could mean anything from another ministry official to one of Morticia's spiritualist friends to a long-dead Adams relative temporarily returned from the beyond. "Coming!" Harry called back. He stood and extinguished the candles with a wave of his hand, another trick he'd mastered under Wednesday's tutelage. As they descended the winding staircase from the attic, Harry felt the familiar warmth of belonging that still caught him by surprise sometimes. In 6 months, the Adams mansion had become more home to him than Privet Drive had ever been. The dark corridors lined with bizarre artifacts, the sentient house plants that sometimes tried to eat visitors, the random explosions from Pugsley's room, the wailing sounds from the dungeon where Uncle Fester conducted his experiments, all of it had become comfortingly normal. They found the family gathered in the main drawing room, along with two familiar figures, Professor Dumbledore, resplendent in robes of midnight blue sprinkled with moving stars, and Professor McGonagall, looking as stern as ever in emerald green. "Ah, Harry, Miss Adams," Dumbledore greeted them, blue eyes twinkling. "Wonderful to see you both. We were just discussing the final arrangements for your attendance at Hogwarts." "Headmaster," Harry nodded politely. His relationship with Dumbledore remained complex, gratitude for the man's eventual flexibility warring with lingering resentment over the Dursley situation. "We've brought your official Hogwarts letters," McGonagall said, holding out 2 envelopes, one addressed to Harry, the other to Wednesday. "Including special dispensation for Miss Adams's unprecedented attendance." Wednesday took her letter with a neutral expression that Harry knew masked keen interest. They'd speculated endlessly about how a non-magical student would participate in classes designed for wizards and witches. "We've also brought the supply lists," Dumbledore added. "Though I understand you may have already acquired some items during your visit to the American Magical Shopping District in New Orleans last month." "Some," Gomez confirmed cheerfully. "Fascinating place, the Vieux Care Magique. Not as stodgy as I remember Diagon Alley being." Found a delightful shop selling cursed objects that would have been quite illegal in Britain. McGonagall's lips thinned disapprovingly. We still need wands, Harry added quickly, hoping to head off any lecture about dark artifacts. And uniforms. Indeed, Dumbledore nodded. Which brings us to the matter of your upcoming trip to London. Given the sensitivity of Harry's first public appearance in Wizarding Britain since his relocation, we'll need to make special arrangements. We're prepared, Morticia assured him. Disillusionment charms for Harry until we reach the secure entrance you've arranged. Wednesday and I will accompany him, while Gomez and the others prepare the London house. This had been another complex negotiation. The Adamses had purchased a suitably gloomy townhouse in London's Bloomsbury district that had conveniently, or perhaps inconveniently for the previous owners, developed a reputation for being haunted. It would serve as their base during Harry's school terms, allowing the family to remain close while he attended Hogwarts. Excellent, Dumbledore said. And you've been practicing the communication mirrors? They'll be your primary means of contact while at school, since Hogwarts' protective enchantments interfere with most Muggle technologies. They work perfectly, Harry confirmed. The two-way mirrors were a magical version of video phones, allowing him to speak face-to-face with the Adamses from anywhere in Hogwarts. Splendid. Then I believe everything is in order for, Dumbledore broke off suddenly, his expression sharpening as he turned toward the windows. Minerva, he said quietly, all warmth vanishing from his voice, shield charm, if you please. McGonagall reacted instantly, drawing her wand and casting a shimmering protective barrier around the room just as a massive explosion rocked the mansion, shattering the drawing-room windows and sending glass flying everywhere. What the, Gomez began, but Fester interrupted. That wasn't one of mine, he protested, looking genuinely offended that someone else was blowing things up on his territory. Death Eaters, Dumbledore said grimly, his wand now in his hand. I sense their magical signatures. At least 6, perhaps more. At last. Gomez exclaimed, looking delighted rather than alarmed. We've been expecting them for months. Lurch. Battle stations. The towering butler groaned in acknowledgement and pulled a cord that apparently activated the mansion's defenses. Metal shutters slammed down over the broken windows, and Harry heard the distinct sound of mechanical traps being armed throughout the house. Harry, Wednesday, to the panic room, Morticia commanded, her usual serene demeanor replaced with cool efficiency. Pugsley, assist Grandmama with the defensive potions. But I can help. Harry protested. After 6 months of training, he wasn't about to hide while his family faced danger. Out of the question, McGonagall said sharply. You're just children. With all due respect, Professor, Wednesday said in a tone suggesting no respect whatsoever, this is our home, and Harry is our family. We defend our own. Another explosion shook the mansion, followed by the satisfying sound of one of the Adams traps being triggered and someone outside screaming in pain. That'll be the quicksand pit, Pugsley grinned. Works every time. We have no time to argue, Dumbledore interrupted. Harry must be protected, but I fear the attackers have anti-apparition wards in place, we cannot simply transport him away. We don't need to, Wednesday said coolly. The panic room is protected by blood magic. Once inside, no one who isn't an Adams can enter. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. Blood magic? Most impressive, and quite useful in this situation. However, a thunderous crash from the entrance hall suggested the Death Eaters had breached the front door. However, Harry isn't technically an Adams by blood, Dumbledore finished quickly. A technicality we can remedy, Grandmama cackled, materializing with a smoking vial in her gnarled hand. Been saving this for a special occasion. Blood adoption potion, just needs a drop from each Adams and from Harry to complete. McGonagall looked scandalized. Albus, you cannot allow, actually, Minerva, Dumbledore interrupted thoughtfully, in this emergency, it may be the safest option. Blood adoption is unorthodox but not illegal, and would provide Harry with additional protection through family magic. We've discussed this before, Morticia added, taking the vial from Grandmama. Harry has expressed interest, and we've been researching the proper ritual. This simply accelerates our timeline. Harry nodded firmly. I want to do it. I've wanted to be officially in Adams for months. The sounds of battle were growing closer, crashes, explosions, and the distinctive crack of spellfire mixing with the more unusual sounds of the Adams' mechanical and magical traps being triggered. Very well, Dumbledore conceded. Quickly, then. Minerva and I will hold them off while you complete the ritual. As Dumbledore and McGonagall moved toward the entrance hall, wands raised, the Adams family gathered in a tight circle around Harry. Morticia unstoppered the vial, which emitted an ominous purple smoke. The ritual is simple but binding, she explained rapidly. Each Adams contributes blood, then you drink the potion, Harry. You'll remain yourself, but will gain certain Adams family traits and protections. Most importantly, you'll be recognized by our family magic. And you might grow an extra toe. Fester added cheerfully. I did after my blood ritual. Uncle Fester was adopted too, Wednesday explained to Harry's questioning look. Though under different circumstances involving amnesia and an electric eel. Long story, Fester nodded. Tell you later if we survive. Grandmama produced a wicked-looking ritual dagger. One by one, each Adams made a small cut on their palm and let several drops of blood fall into the vial. Gomez, Morticia, Pugsley, Wednesday, Fester, and Grandmama herself. Even Lurch contributed, his blood an unusually dark shade of crimson. Thing somehow managed to add a drop despite having no visible blood vessels. The potion bubbled and shifted color with each contribution, eventually settling into a deep, shimmering black that occasionally flashed with silver streaks, not unlike Wednesday's eyes when she was particularly passionate about something. Your turn, Harry, Morticia said, offering him the dagger. Harry took a deep breath. After everything the Adamses had done for him, rescuing him from the Dursleys, protecting him from magical authorities, teaching him to embrace his differences rather than fear them, this felt right. This felt like destiny. He made a small cut on his palm and held it over the vial, watching as his blood dripped into the mixture. The potion hissed and released a cloud of silver smoke that formed briefly into the shape of a skull before dissipating. Excellent sign. Grandmama approved. The family magic accepts you. Now drink, Gomez instructed, his usual jovial expression replaced with solemn intensity. And become, in magic and spirit and blood, an Adams. From the entrance hall came the sounds of fierce magical combat. Dumbledore and McGonagall were evidently engaged with the Death Eaters. There was no more time for hesitation. Harry took the vial and, with a quick glance at Wednesday who gave him an encouraging nod, drained the contents in one gulp. It tasted like nothing he could describe, somehow metallic and sweet and bitter all at once, with undertones of something ancient and powerful. For a moment, nothing happened. Then heat rushed through his veins, spreading from his core to his extremities in a wave of intense but not unpleasant warmth. His vision blurred, then sharpened. Colors seemed more vibrant. Scents more distinct. And he could feel something new, connections, like invisible threads linking him to each person in the circle. The Adams family magic, recognizing him as one of their own. Well? Pugsley asked eagerly. Feel any different? Growing any extra limbs? I feel. Harry searched for the right words. Complete. Like something that was missing clicked into place. The ritual worked, Morticia confirmed, a rare full smile gracing her features. Welcome to the family, Harry Adams Potter. Just in time too, Gomez added as another crash, much closer this time, suggested the Death Eaters were approaching the drawing room. Now to the panic room, all of you. Lurch and I will join Dumbledore and McGonagall. I'm staying too, Fester declared, producing several suspicious-looking grenades from his coat pockets. Been waiting months to test these on real dark wizards. Morticia nodded sharply. Very well. Wednesday, Take Harry and Pugsley to the panic room. Grandmama and I will secure the perimeter. Wednesday grabbed Harry's hand without hesitation. Come on. The entrance is behind the bookcase in the library. As they raced from the drawing room, Harry caught a glimpse of the entrance hall, or what was left of it. Two masked figures in black robes lay unconscious or worse on the marble floor. Dumbledore was engaged in a spectacular duel with 3 more Death Eaters, his wand moving so quickly it was just a blur. McGonagall had transfigured the grand staircase into a writhing mass of serpents that were attacking another pair of dark wizards. Gomez let out a war cry and leapt into the fray with fencing sword in hand, somehow managing to deflect a spell with the blade. Fester followed, cackling maniacally as he lobbed one of his grenades toward a cluster of Death Eaters just entering through the shattered front door. Harry! Wednesday tugged his arm urgently. We need to move. They sprinted through the house, dodging falling debris as the magical battle shook the very foundations of the mansion. In the library, Wednesday pulled a specific book, 101 Creative Uses for Human Remains, and a hidden door swung open in the bookcase. In, quickly, she ordered, pushing Harry and Pugsley through before following herself. The door sealed behind them with a squelching sound that suggested magical protections far beyond a simple lock. The panic room was surprisingly spacious and, in typical Adams fashion, decorated like a comfortable dungeon. Stone walls lined with, hopefully decorative, chains and manacles, plush velvet furniture in deep crimson and black, and ample supplies that appeared to include both emergency food and various weapons. Will they be okay? Harry asked anxiously, straining his ears for sounds of the battle. The room was too well insulated, he could hear nothing from outside. They're Adamses, Pugsley said confidently, examining a medieval mace hanging on the wall. And they have Dumbledore. Death Eaters don't stand a chance. But why attack now? Harry wondered aloud. After all these months? Timing, Wednesday said, her expression calculating. Your Hogwarts letter arrived. News of your attendance will have leaked despite the precautions. They wanted to strike before you were under the school's protection. How would they even know where to find me? Harry asked. I thought the house was under that Fidelius charm thing. It is, Wednesday confirmed. Which means either someone betrayed the secret, or, a series of rapid knocks interrupted her speculation. The pattern, 3 quick, 2 slow, 3 quick, was apparently significant, as Wednesday immediately moved to open the door. Morticia stood there, looking remarkably unruffled despite the chaos that must be unfolding elsewhere in the house. The situation is under control, she announced. Most of the attackers have been subdued or have retreated. Most? Wednesday asked sharply. One got away, Morticia acknowledged. But not before Dumbledore identified him, Lucius Malfoy, apparently a significant figure among Voldemort's former supporters. Harry and Wednesday exchanged glances. They'd read about the Malfoy family in their research, wealthy, influential, and had claimed to be under mind control during Voldemort's reign of terror, a claim many doubted. Is everyone okay? Harry asked urgently. Uncle Gomez? Uncle Fester? Your father is fine, Morticia assured him, the new familial title coming naturally after the blood adoption. Just a few curse burns he's actually quite proud of. Fester is, temporarily discolored after one of his grenades backfired, but otherwise intact. Harry sagged with relief. And the professors? Professor Dumbledore is assisting the American Aurors who have just arrived, Morticia explained. Professor McGonagall is helping Grandmama restore the entrance hall. She's quite talented with transfiguration. They followed Morticia back through the house, surveying the damage. The once grand entrance hall was a disaster zone of broken marble, scorch marks, and what appeared to be the remains of several explosive devices. Magical and mundane combat had clearly merged into a uniquely Adams form of defense. McGonagall was indeed working with Grandmama, her wand making intricate patterns as she restored shattered pillars and cracked floors. She looked up as they entered, her expression softening when she saw Harry. Mr. Potter, or I suppose it's Mr. Adams Potter now, thank goodness you're safe. Thanks to you and Professor Dumbledore, Harry acknowledged. And my family, he added, feeling a rush of warmth at being able to say those words with complete truth now. The front door, or what remained of it, opened to admit Dumbledore and several stern-looking witches and wizards in navy blue robes that Harry recognized as the uniform of Macusa Aurors. The perimeter is secured, Dumbledore announced. The remaining Death Eaters have operated away, though not before we captured 3 of them. Pity, Fester sighed, entering from another room. His face and hands were now a vivid purple. I was just getting warmed up. One of the Aurors, a tall black woman with close-cropped hair, stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Adams, we'll need statements from everyone about this incident. Attack by foreign dark wizards on American soil is a serious international breach. Of course, Gomez nodded, appearing at the top of the half-destroyed staircase. His normally immaculate suit was singed and torn, but he was grinning broadly. Most exciting afternoon we've had in months. Reminds me of the zombie uprising of '87. The Auror blinked but apparently decided not to pursue that statement. We'll also need to question the boy, my son, Gomez corrected firmly, descending what remained of the stairs. Harry Adams Potter. And any questioning happens with family present. Your son. The Auror raised an eyebrow. Our records indicate, a blood adoption ritual was just completed, Dumbledore interjected smoothly. Necessitated by the emergency circumstances. I witnessed it myself, all perfectly legitimate, I assure you. The Auror looked like she wanted to object but thought better of it. Very well. Family can be present during questioning. We'll start with, a new commotion at the doorway interrupted her as a familiar figure burst in, Cousin ITT, moving with surprising speed for what appeared to be an ambulatory hair pile. ITT emitted a rapid series of squeaks and chirps, gesturing frantically. Slow down, ITT, Morticia said. What ministry? British or American? More squeaking followed. Both? Gomez's eyebrows shot up. Well, that complicates things. What's happening? Harry asked Wednesday quietly. Cousin ITT says representatives from both ministries are on their way, she translated. The British ministry is demanding your immediate return to England now that your location has been compromised. They're claiming jurisdiction since you're a British citizen. But I'm an Adams now, Harry said, feeling a surge of panic. They can't just take me, can they? No, Wednesday said with absolute certainty. The blood adoption changes everything. Magically and legally, you're now part of one of the oldest magical families in America. Oldest magical families? Harry repeated, confused. But you can't do magic. Not active magic, no, Wednesday conceded. But the Adams bloodline has always had certain abilities. Sensitivity to the supernatural. Resistance to curses. Uncommon longevity. The family magic recognized you, which means you're now protected by centuries of accumulated power. Harry felt that power now, a subtle current running beneath his skin, different from but complementary to his own magic. The blood adoption hadn't just been symbolic, it had changed something fundamental within him. Dumbledore approached them, his expression grave but his eyes still containing that characteristic twinkle. I see Cousin ITT has delivered the news. Things are about to become rather politically complicated, I'm afraid. You won't let them take me, will you? Harry asked, hating the tremor in his voice but unable to suppress the fear of being separated from his new family. Harry, Dumbledore said gently, I made many mistakes regarding your placement after your parents died. I won't make another. You belong with the family that has shown you love and acceptance, and I will make that abundantly clear to Minister Fudge when he arrives. Relief flooded through Harry. Thank you, sir. Besides, Dumbledore added with a small smile, I suspect attempting to remove you from the Adams family would be unwise for all involved. Given the devastation the Adamses had just helped inflict on trained Death Eaters, Harry thought this was probably an understatement. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Aurors took statements. Magical repair crews arrived to help restore the mansion. Fester's purple complexion gradually faded to a more normal ghostly pallor. And through it all, the Adamses kept Harry close, a unified front against anyone who might try to separate them. By evening, the entrance hall had been largely restored, though Grandmama had insisted on keeping some of the scorch marks as character. The captured Death Eaters had been taken away for interrogation, and the American Aurors had established a protective perimeter around the property. They were gathered in the dining room, having a remarkably normal dinner given the day's events, when Lurch groaned from the doorway, announcing new visitors. "Show them in, Lurch," Gomez instructed, dabbing at his mustache with a black napkin. "Let's get this diplomatic incident underway." The newcomers were an odd pair. One was a portly man in a pinstriped suit and lime green bowler hat who exuded nervous energy. The other was a stern-faced woman in practical navy robes with the MACUSA insignia. "Minister Fudge," Dumbledore greeted the man in the bowler, rising from his seat at the table. "President Hawthorne. Thank you both for coming personally. May I introduce the Addams family?" "Charmed," Gomez declared, jumping up to vigorously shake first Fudge's hand, then Hawthorne's. "Simply charmed. Come, join us for dinner. Grandmama has made her famous roast beast. We're not entirely sure what beast, but it's delicious." Fudge looked distinctly uncomfortable. "Ah, perhaps later. We have urgent matters to discuss regarding Harry Potter." "Adams Potter," Wednesday corrected coldly. Fudge blinked at being addressed so directly by a child, but pressed on. "Yes, well, that's precisely the issue we need to discuss. The British Ministry of Magic has serious concerns about Mr. Potter's safety after today's attack, as well as the unorthodox changes to his legal status." "What my British counterpart means," President Hawthorne interjected smoothly, "is that we need to establish clear jurisdiction and appropriate protective measures for the child, while respecting both international magical cooperation and the rights of the family." "Harry stays with us," Morticia said simply. "That is non-negotiable." "Mrs. Adams," Fudge began in what he clearly thought was a reasonable tone, "you must understand that Harry Potter is not just any wizard child. He's a British national hero, and his safety is a matter of utmost importance to our ministry. Which is why we completed the blood adoption," Gomez explained, returning to his seat and gesturing for the officials to take empty chairs. "Harry is now protected by Adams family magic, magic that has kept our line safe from dark forces for centuries." "Blood adoption is hardly standard procedure," Fudge protested. "And done without ministry approval. Blood adoption requires no governmental approval in the United States," President Hawthorne interrupted calmly. "The magic itself determines validity. If the Addams family magic accepted Harry, then the adoption is binding and recognized under MACUSA law." Fudge sputtered indignantly. "Be that as it may, Harry Potter belongs in Britain. His magical education, his heritage, his destiny, will all be honored," Dumbledore assured him. "The arrangements we've made ensure that Harry will attend Hogwarts as planned, with appropriate accommodations for his new family situation. Including my attendance as an exchange student," Wednesday added coolly. This was apparently news to both ministry officials, who looked at Dumbledore in astonishment. "You authorized a Muggle to attend Hogwarts?" Fudge asked incredulously. "Miss Adams is hardly an ordinary Muggle," Dumbledore replied with a faint smile. "And as headmaster, I have certain discretionary powers regarding exceptional admissions." "This is highly irregular," Fudge muttered. "Minister," Harry spoke up, feeling bold with his family surrounding him, "I want to go to Hogwarts. I want to learn about my birth parents and my magical heritage. But I also want to stay with my family, the family that rescued me when no one else did, that taught me not to be ashamed of being different, that protected me today when Death Eaters attacked." Fudge had the grace to look somewhat abashed at the mention of Death Eaters. "Yes, well, about that isolated incident, surely. Remnants of you-know-who's followers acting independently. Nothing to suggest any broader threat. 5 of your citizens attacked a home on American soil, President Hawthorne said coolly. That's more than an isolated incident, Minister. It's an international magical incident that requires explanation. And compensation for damages. Gomez added cheerfully. Though I must say, the scorch marks in the East Wing rather improve the ambience. Fudge looked increasingly uncomfortable. Yes, well, the ministry will of course cover reasonable damages. And provide additional protective measures for Harry's safety going forward. Including recognition of his adoption and new legal status? Morticia asked pointedly. Fudge and Hawthorne exchanged glances. A compromise, Hawthorne suggested. Dual citizenship. Harry maintains his British magical citizenship for educational and historical purposes, while gaining American magical citizenship through his adoption into the Addams family. That could work, Dumbledore nodded. It would allow Harry to attend Hogwarts as a British citizen while protecting his right to live with his adoptive family. Fudge still looked unhappy but seemed to realize he had little leverage. I suppose that's acceptable. Provided the boy returns to Britain for his schooling as planned. I will, Harry assured him. I want to go to Hogwarts. He glanced at Wednesday. We both do. Then it's settled. Gomez declared. Harry Adams Potter, dual citizen of magical Britain and America, future Hogwarts student, and most importantly, member of the Addams family. He raised his goblet in toast, and everyone, even the reluctant Minister Fudge, followed suit. To family, Morticia said softly. In all its unusual forms. To family, everyone echoed. As Harry sipped his pumpkin juice, carefully checked by Wednesday to ensure Grandmama hadn't improved it with any questionable ingredients, he felt a profound sense of peace despite the chaos of the day. The Death Eater attack had been frightening, yes, but it had also accelerated what he'd wanted for months, official, magical recognition as part of the Addams family. He caught Wednesday's eye across the table and saw the faintest hint of a smile on her usually solemn face. She nodded slightly, a gesture that spoke volumes between them after months of growing closer. They'd face Hogwarts together. Whatever came next, whether magical education, political complications, or the looming shadow of Voldemort that Dumbledore still believed existed, they would face it as family. The remaining summer months passed in a flurry of preparations for Hogwarts. Harry's official supply list now included specialized items for Wednesday as well, modified textbooks that focused on magical theory rather than practical application, special quills enchanted to work for non-magical users, and various protective amulets that would allow her to safely navigate a school saturated with magic. Their trip to London occurred without incident, though not without drama. The Addams family's idea of blending in with magical British society involved Morticia wearing a slightly less funereal shade of black and Gomez reluctantly leaving his dueling sword at home. They still turned heads in Diagon Alley, but most wizards seemed to assume they were an eccentric foreign magical family rather than mostly non-magical Americans. Ollivander's wand shop had been particularly memorable. The eerie wand maker had studied Wednesday almost as intently as Harry, muttering about old blood and dormant magic, before focusing on finding Harry's wand. Curious, he had murmured when the holly and phoenix feather wand chose Harry. Most curious. What's curious? Harry had asked. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Adams Potter, Ollivander had replied softly. The phoenix who gave the feather for your wand gave only one other. It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar. The revelation that Harry's wand shared a core with Voldemort's had been unsettling, but Wednesday had found it fascinating from a magical theory perspective. It suggests a connection, she had said later as they discussed it in the gloomy townhouse the Addamses had established as their London base. Something beyond the prophecy Dumbledore mentioned. Does it mean I'm like him? Harry had asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at him since Ollivander's shop. Wednesday had fixed him with one of her penetrating stares. Having the same wand core as Voldemort no more makes you like him than having the same blood type as a serial killer would make you homicidal, she had said firmly. What matters are your choices, not your magical connections. Now, on the morning of September 1st, Harry stood on platform 9 3/4, surrounded by his adopted family and feeling a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The Hogwarts Express gleamed scarlet beside the platform, steam billowing as students and parents milled about, many casting curious or startled glances at the Addams clan. You have your communication mirror? Morticia asked, straightening Harry's already straight tie. Yes, Mother, Harry nodded, still loving the way the word felt when addressed to Morticia. And the emergency port keys Dumbledore provided. And the protective amulet from Grandmama. And the explosives I slipped into your trunk? Fester asked with a wink. Uncle Fester. Morticia admonished. We agreed, nothing that could level more than a single classroom. Harry laughed, then sobered. I'm going to miss you all. We'll be in London most of the term, Gomez reminded him, clapping him on the shoulder. Just a flu call away if you need us. And we'll see you at Halloween for the special feast Dumbledore arranged. One of the compromises they'd reached was that Harry would be allowed to return to the Addams London home for major holidays and special occasions, rather than remaining at Hogwarts as most boarding students did. And we'll be together at school, Wednesday added, standing beside him with her own trunk. She had steadfastly refused to wear anything but black, even after seeing the Hogwarts uniform requirements. Dumbledore had eventually relented and approved a modified uniform for her that maintained her preferred color scheme. Are you nervous? Harry asked her quietly as Gomez and Fester became distracted by the magical pet shop on the platform, where Fester was trying to convince the proprietor to sell him what appeared to be a three-headed snake. Wednesday considered the question with her usual seriousness. Curious, she decided. To be surrounded by magic I can observe but not perform. To be among children our age who have lived entirely different lives. She paused. But not nervous, no. We've faced worse than school. Harry nodded, thinking of the Death Eater attack and everything that had followed. Together, right? Together, she agreed. Family. The train whistle blew, signaling 5 minutes until departure. Time to board. Gomez announced, returning with Fester, who had not, thankfully, acquired the three-headed snake. Future witches and wizards and, whatever Wednesday is, all aboard. Goodbyes were quick but heartfelt. Morticia embraced them both, whispering something to Wednesday that made her daughter nod solemnly. Gomez shook Harry's hand, then pulled him into a bone-crushing hug. Pugsley promised to send them interesting specimens by owl post. Grandmama pressed a small vial of something suspiciously bubbling into Harry's hand with instructions to drink it if anyone gives you trouble. Fester demonstrated how to create small explosions with common potions ingredients, earning a disapproving look from a passing prefect. Finally, Harry and Wednesday boarded the train, finding an empty compartment toward the back. As they settled in, Harry leaned out the window for one last wave to his family. The sight of them standing together on the platform, bizarre, loving, and completely unconcerned with the stares they were attracting from other magical families, filled him with warmth. 2 years ago, he had been a lonely, abused boy in a cupboard, believing himself unwanted and unloved. Now he was Harry Adams Potter, heading to Hogwarts with his adopted sister, secure in the knowledge that he belonged somewhere, that he was loved, that he had a family who would tear apart anyone who tried to hurt him. What are you thinking? Wednesday asked as the train began to move, the platform and the Adamses slowly disappearing from view. That I'm the luckiest person in the world, Harry replied honestly. Wednesday raised an eyebrow. Because you're going to learn magic? Because I found you, Harry corrected. Because your nightmares showed you my suffering, and you convinced your family to rescue me. For once, Wednesday didn't deflect or dismiss his gratitude. The nightmares came for a reason, she said quietly. We were meant to find each other. To be family. As the Hogwarts Express gathered speed, carrying them toward a castle filled with magic and mystery and undoubtedly new dangers. Harry felt ready for whatever came next. He had his wand, his training, and most importantly, he had Wednesday and the rest of the Adamses behind him. He was no longer the boy who lived in a cupboard. He was Harry Adams Potter. And he was home. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.